Hello, everybody out there in the YouTube universe. And we have David Stewart, Roy Bixby, Randall Brander, and Gustavo Ugetto, and myself. I'll let you figure out who I am. You can look underneath. And as you know, tonight is our photo review. And as they say, let's get ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
There we go. Let's get ready to rumble! Oh, I'm glad I have a good heart. That could kill you. Oh, anyway, let's say hi to everybody that's in here. That's popped in already. We already got a dozen people anyway. So we got Terry's in the house suffering from the same ailment that Roy has with the time change going on in Australia. That really mucks up things pretty bad. Usually takes me a couple days to recover from that when we have it in the U.S. And Bob, our photos in the house, and let's see. I know I saw and Ava's here, and Luke. And we'll get started when we get a few more people in here. We have 69 images that we're going to share tonight. And I got to get my laptop set up here. Okay, my laptop's working. That's good. I never know, because once they start showing the pictures on the big screen per se, I can't see anything in the chat unless I have my laptop running in parallel here. Otherwise, I don't even know who's saying hi. Sanjit's in here.
Anita.
That's all right. We'll give you a free pass this time. But next month, we're going to be looking. So, 69 is a respectable amount. And as always, we all thank you. I thank everyone for your willingness to share some of your work. And hopefully you're going to enjoy everything from your fellow community members here. And now, a reminder is this is the first time where we're going to have everyone who wishes to participate anyway, where you select 3 images from what you're going to see tonight, and you're going to have until 11:59 p.m. next Saturday to send in the comment section for the live stream the 3 images that you like the best. And we already kind of set a precondition for those of us on the panel that we can't vote for our own images. It would probably be nice if everybody kind of did that, but I'm not gonna have the time to check and make sure somebody doesn't vote for their own picture. But I'd like to think that we just vote for other people's images other than our own. That would be the fairest way to go about it. But anybody on the panel, we're definitely not going to vote for our own images. And then we will. I'll tabulate which you just got to put down the first 3 digits that you're going to see for every image is going to have a 3-digit numerical prefix starting with 001 to 69. And so just put in the 3 numbers, 3 for the 3 images, and that's it. And then whichever one ends up with the most points will be put on a calendar sheet for November. That will be I will put that calendar together. I will show it to everybody before we make it available. It'll be both a PDF file as well as a JPEG file. And all you got to do is send me an email, request the calendar, and you will get both files. And that way you can do with them whatever you wish to do with them. And then the top three images will show up in the thumbnail for our new photo talk template with the yellow background, which has three images in it that you saw before the show. And for next month, it'll have those three images that are in the top three, and those will show up in that template. So you'll have 1 week to vote. You'll have till 11:59 p.m. on the 12th of October, at which time voting is closed, and you have to send it in via email or via going to YouTube and go into selective imagery under live, find the show, go into the comments section and just say, here's my three, and that's it. And not too tough. Let's see. Mookie, so when I submit a photo for the next session. Yeah, we're gonna have some fun. Should not vote for my same picture 3 times. No, prefer you don't do that. Well, let's hope those who don't win don't fight. Let's try to keep it. Let's try to keep things very civil. And remember, this isn't a contest. This is just to have a little fun and do a little calendar thing. And if we get too serious about it, believe me, it'll go away very, very quickly, because I don't want anybody to get overly serious about it. It's not meant to be. No one's going to win a Porsche 911. I hate to break it to you. You don't get much on this channel. What can I tell you?
Exactly.
Well, I was just mimicking one of your former presidents.
Yes. That's all right. There are many that one can choose from to have fun with. There's no shortage. So other than the pictures, there'll be a few things with Nikon rumors, and I did find some interest in a couple of third-party lenses that I watched numerous reviews on 2 particular third-party lenses in particular that I'll talk about at the end of the show. And then we'll have, as long as David is still awake by the end of the show, we'll have him talk a little bit about the Aurora, because it's penetrated more of the southern part of the globe than normal, and he can talk about that a little bit. And then if anybody wants to talk about the Comet opportunities upcoming, anybody has any advice on tracking a Comet, then feel free to share that information as well. And so we have, let's see, did we get anybody? Tim Mackin is in here, and Sanjit's saying the winning photo gets a prize from him. You'll have to come and collect it personally. The problem is, since he's not disclosing the value of that prize, it's probably going to cost you more to fly there to see him than what you're going to get for the prize. But you never know. He may surprise you. The prize is going to be, you're going to see all the birds all the birds and wildlife that you could possibly imagine in whatever period of time that you're there. I'm sure that in itself is a reward. And Joey's saying he forgot to submit a photo. We understand, Joe. You just got married. Photography is going to take a back seat for a little while.
Yeah, there's Chuck's here too, in the chat.
Yeah, you see, I don't know. Sounds like hello, Chuck. Good to see you. Hopefully Noah's keeping you entertained. And for those who don't know who Noah is, that's Chuck's new kitty cat. And we're at 19 people. And when we get over 20, I'll start setting up. It'll take me a minute or so to get everything set up to do the review. Joey's saying he got some pictures of a custom guitar amp builder in the hopper. In the hopper. And when you word it that way, one could take that as, in the hopper in a good way, or when are you referring to as going in the shredder, paper shredder? But yeah, it'd be nice if NASA Nancy would pop in tonight. I don't know if she will or not. They're probably working her to death before she retires. I'm sure that's how it always goes. Once they get an idea that you're ready to leave, then they load all the work on you because they figure, oh, we don't have anybody else that's going to be able to do it when you're gone. So we're going to really pile it on big time, and you can live here at NASA for your remaining days before you retire. We know how that works. My best recommendation for people is when you're going to retire, you don't tell your employer any earlier than you have to. Because I gave 6 months notice where I left because there was no one to do my job. And guess what? I was training the person to do my job literally half days 1 week prior to my retirement. So I give them 6 months notice and I get a body. And I won't even say the person really got trained, because how are you going to train somebody in 4 hour days for basically 4 days? Because my fifth day, you're saying goodbye to people. They take you out to lunch, and then you get back, and it's like they don't let you stay past noon, and they kick you out the door, and they say, "Nice knowing you. Have a nice day."
Yeah, bugger off.
So basically, there was four days of maybe 4 hours a day for 4 days, and that was it. Give them 6 months to try to help them out, and all that did was, like I just said, pile the work on me big time for the last 6 months, because nothing was going to get done anytime soon once I left. Now, don't recommend it, man. Give your 2 weeks and call it a day, or you will pay. We have 22 people, so I'm going to start setting up for the images here, and bear with me. Share the screen. Hopefully everybody can see this. Is it large enough? Let me see.
Is that you, Gustavo?
Yes.
So, all right. So this is the first image, and as you can see, you got the file name in the upper left-hand corner, and so you just, as we go through these, if you scribble on a piece of paper which ones you like, just put down 001 through 067, and then we're going to have, like we always do after we've gone through all the images, then what we always do is we show them all over again, beginning to end, for about 4 or 5 seconds time for each one. And then you have, like I said, you have 1 week to send me in the comments section of the live stream on the Selective Imagery YouTube channel the 3 that you like the most.
So Jeff, also, like we had done in the past, although people has not used that opportunity, but can you put the connection to the live stream in case somebody wants to come and comment on their own photos?
Okay, give me a second. I'm missing some. Let's see. I can do that. Just let me get my bearings here.
Yes, no problem.
And to get you to show the picture full screen.
And so here is the link is in the chat now, or will be in a second.
It's there.
We can see it.
And this is
And who is coming? Who is this? And who is coming?
okay. Let me. I'm gonna see if I can make it bigger. It doesn't look like I can for some reason.
You've got us along the bottom, and you got Joe's comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could get rid of the comment, and I can.
And
There we
that's
go.
better there.
That's the best I'm gonna get it.
Beautiful.
So
He's using a Canon, so I think.
yeah. So this is. I gotta. What a pain. I end up with multiple layers of stuff, and it's because I had to have my cheat sheet on here too. So I gotta like move everything around.
It's a good image for sure.
And
This is
move
Jeff.
everything.
Jeff and Leslie.
Yes, this is Jeff Sluter's shot, Jeff and
Ah.
Leslie. So we're going to start off the first ones we're going to see in the queue is we're going to see some from Jeff and Leslie. We're going to see some from Bob Repper, and we're going to see some from Terry. Terry, if he's still awake after suffering from his time change. So this is our first image, 001. So Jeff says for October, I thought I'd put up the scariest things I photographed, spiders. He says, yes, I am terrified of them, but enjoy taking their photos.
Yeah.
And this first image is a nursery web spider, Canon R7 with the Canon 100 to 500 at f6.3, 1/400th of a second, ISO 160. And I'm assuming that big gigantic mass is all the makes me.
Yeah, no.
That's the flower, but it's somewhere in that flower there's got to be some
Babies.
young one somewhere, I would imagine, but you never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can. That's about as close as I want to get to the spider.
No, that's good. That's good.
But
At least
shot.
you see, Jeff, he's using a telephoto, correct? So he's not that close. He's using 100 to 500.
Well, I'm just saying from this perspective of what I'm looking at on my screen, I don't want the spider any
Exactly.
closer to me.
Exactly.
You can see all the little spikes off the legs too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very sharp.
And it's a sharp lens.
He's probably at the minimum focal distance too.
Yeah.
So his next image that he sent in is also going to be a spider. And I gotta fix my my laptop here because I'm not seeing any of the pictures show up on my laptop, so I have to go back in. There we go.
What type of spider is that?
Okay, so this spider, he says, is called a white-banded crab spider. And he says,
Yeah.
I think Leslie was trying to kill me with this one. There was a flower with the petals folded over. She asked me to open the petals to see what was in there. He says, this enormous crab spider lunged at me with its fierce fangs at the ready. It was at least the size of a manhole cover, if not larger, with those multiple beady eyes and killer fangs just wanting to suck the life right out of my thumb. He says, okay, it was about the size of a pencil eraser, but it did jump towards his thumb. Canon R5 with the 1 to 500, 1/160th of a second, ISO 100, f8, plus 0.7 EV. Yeah, that's
Really?
cool.
That's cool. And as always, I mean, Jeff knows that very well, correct? He had, for these photos to work, he has to get in, correct? He has to get
can hear you, but they can't see you.
he has to get in. He has to come close to the animal. So
Yeah.
that's very good. Well executed, Jeff, as usual. The,
Yeah,
the,
and
uh,
they
the
must
crash-
have big flowers if the spider's the size of a manhole cover.
yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't, if it was the size of a manhole cover, I wouldn't be bothering trying to take its picture. I'd be running like, you know what, the other
This,
way.
this type
Um,
of spiders always take the coloration. They typically have the same color as the flower. So
yeah, they blend right in good, and then they just wait for, a bee or
bees,
something to fly in there.
exactly, bees. They like to
Bees.
get the bees.
Now
Well
his
done.
third, well done. His third image
Okay.
is of a. He says this is a six-spotted fishing spider, and he says yes, they will catch small minnows if given the chance. He says this beast really was about 2 to 2.5 inches across, legs included. He says, of course, to me, it looked about the diameter of a monster truck tire. The AR5 again with the 1 to 5, 1/400th of a second, f7.1, which is wide open at ISO 1600. Yeah, there's something about insects that make people, cringe just a little bit. Even if you're used to them, you still, when you're not expecting them, it'll make you jump. And then his next image here, you can see the
I think
spider trying to get that butterfly. He says this is the world's luckiest skipper butterfly, and it did manage to get away.
wow.
R7 once again with the 1 to 5, ISO 320, 1/1000th of a second. He said he was using pre-capture to get the action. He says, so he's got two photos here, one right after another that you're going to see. This is the first one. And he says at 30 frames per second, they were 1/60th of a second apart. And he says that's how fast the action happened. So this is the first of two that he sent in, and that's great. I mean,
Yeah, it's ready.
what you want sharp is sharp. Period. The spider's sharp, the legs and a good part of the body and the eye of the butterfly is tack sharp as well. So I mean, really, really good job. And his follow-up photo to this is the
Oh,
butterfly like going to visit a church, I think, right after this, and thank somebody for the fact that it didn't become dinner.
that's a
So
fantastic sequence.
yeah, so wonderful job, Jeff and Leslie. Great job.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, if a butterfly could sweat, you would see the drop what's falling right now from the head.
Love those craft spider. They are fantastic. So colorful too. In this case, white. Correct?
So the next images coming up are going to be from my friend Bob from Bob Our Photos. Make sure you check out his website, guys. So his first image is kind of funny, and I wish he could come on and narrate it. He always can if he wants to. I'll have to do my Bob Repper impersonation, but you know how everybody has a story. They'll see the Turons of Yellowstone getting close to bison and doing idiotic things with nature. And well, we were thinking of starting a Turons of Huntington Beach State Park, because his first image here
Ooh.
is of a lady, and what she is standing on is basically what is above the main pipe that will allow water to go to and from the marsh side to the pond side, and that little piece of metal on those boards going horizontally is where they stick in like a winch, and they hook it up to a steel cable that goes through the floor that she's standing on, and it lifts up the flapper valve on the pipe, so it allows them to let the water either pour into the marsh from the pond, because we know that's really all they do now. They don't often open it up to let the water go from the marsh to the pond. But she's basically somewhere where she's not allowed to be, and she was there like forever, and she had to go past the sidewalk, walk around or over a bench seat, and then go across this this set of boards to get to where she's basically hanging her camera over the edge of the platform to shoot straight down on birds, which isn't going to give you a photo that's worth 5 cents anyway. And finally someone stopped their truck. It might have been, we're assuming someone from the park, and finally told her she's not allowed to be over there and that she had to get back on the sidewalk again. But she didn't like that too much. But yeah, it's just amazing that people just feel they could just do whatever the blankety blank they want, and they have no common sense. And we met a person that a gator went on that platform, and the guy got a video of the gator doing a giant dive off that platform into the water, and I guess he posted it. I don't think he has YouTube. He might have posted it on Instagram or whatever, and somebody called him up, or somebody contacted him and wanted to buy the video from him.
Oh, wow.
And he says, I'm not selling it, but he says, I'm not no interest in that, but somebody wanted to buy the footage. I myself haven't seen it yet, because if it's on Instagram, I'm not signed up for Instagram anyway. So, but anyway, yeah. So Bob captured her. We got a few pictures of her as we shook our head, and then his next image. Next image here was, and these all were taken with the Z8, by the way, with the 180 to 600 zoom. The last image was at f5.61, 12/50th of a second, ISO 11,400, shot at 180 millimeters focal length. That was of the Turon. This one is f6.3, 1/12/50th of a second, ISO 1600 at the 600 millimeter focal length. And that's a turn that had some activity with some turns, getting some fish. And his next shot is the one day that we were lucky enough to get an eagle. That he has the fish in his claws there, in his talons, and that was taken. Once again with the Z8 at 450 millimeter focal length with the 180 to 600 at f6.3 wide open, 1/12/50th of a second, ISO 2000.
Lovely.
That's a great shot.
That's a very good shot.
And then
Two.
his next one here is of our little alligator friends having a snack, finding maybe one of the few fish that's on that side in the pond. And this was at wide open once again, f6.3, 1/12/50th of a second at the 600 millimeter focal length, with the 180 to 600 on the Z8. And yeah, that was obviously early morning light, just coming up and kissing the pond, kissing the face of that gator. Thank you, Bob, for sending those in. We appreciate it. And Greg, I hope you're doing well. I'm kind of looking back in the chat. I guess you had some surgery. I hope you recover quickly. Hope things are going okay for you and that you get well soon. And so you have all of our best wishes for a speedy recovery.
For sure.
And so that's all the images from Bob. So thank you, Bob. Bob, I'll let you go back to sleep now. And then we'll move on to some images that Terry sent in from Iceland.
So who's coming next, Terry? And then
We got Terry. And then after Terry, we have someone named Gustavo. I don't know who that might be.
oh,
And then we have Luis after that. So
okay, very good. Thank you.
we have Terry, and then we have you, and then we have Luis.
Beautiful.
So all the images you're going to see here, Terry took in Iceland. So this first one. If you want to pronounce that word, you're Ole.
The holy.
Lighthouse. The holy. Classic puffin shot. I mean, look at all those fish, and the sun is just hitting those fish just right. This is with a Z9 with the 1Z 100 to 400 millimeter lens, the f4.5 to 5.6. This is at 400 millimeters and at f5.6, 1/1250th of a second, ISO 500. I love the lighting.
Yes,
Love
the
lighting.
backlight. Beautiful.
Yeah, really, really nice. Very, very nice, Terry. Keep picking on me, you guys, with these puffin shots. I just love to get the pain it causes me is immense. I'll tell you. Jealousy, and just big time jealous.
Just convince you to go there at one point.
Yeah, at one point. So the next image that Terry sent in, I could just kind of look at this one for a while. I mean, so his next image that he sent in is of a mountaintop here. And this was with the Z9 as well, with the Z 14 to 24 millimeter at f2.8 at the 18 millimeter setting at f8, 1/60th of a second, ISO 64. So he's shooting these at probably no need to use any noise reduction on these images when you're shooting at ISO 64. Pretty darn noise free, I would like to think.
You see, Terry and I complain a little bit about that there was too much rain, but certainly for photography, the dramatic weather helped a lot. Beautiful image, Terry.
The next two. Let's see. I think he's got two here that are. Let's see. I'll bring it up here. He says this is a Stutter Crater panographic shot, 1/160th of a second, f16 ISO 100, 24 millimeter setting with the 24 to 70 f2.8 lens, and
What?
I like the reds, huh? Like the red in here, wonderful.
And it's all lava.
He had somebody shining red flashlights or something. So this is 3 frames from the ground. And then the next one, he borrowed a drone from somebody. And so you'll like this one as well. He borrowed a drone, a Mavic 3 Pro, he thinks, that has a Hasselblad lens on it. And so that's a drone shot of that crater. And that's at, he says 12 millimeter, f5.61, 1/60th of a second, ISO 100. Yeah, when you're shooting aerial shots from high up, sometimes, I mean, in this case, if he didn't say what it was, I wouldn't know what it was. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's sometimes obviously you can look down and say, oh yeah, I see roads and I see a farm and so on and so forth. But when you're taking a picture of something unusual like a crater, I mean, you get such a different look from above that it can be hard to discern what it is.
Beautiful, fantastic, lovely. What can I say? I want to go again.
Yeah. And then he's beautiful job. So those are all the ones that Terry sent in. So thank you, Terry. Yeah, all those
Excellent.
colors are from different mineral deposits, and that's just crazy. That's just crazy. See, now I like how he said he borrowed the drone. I'm wondering if he like thumped somebody over the head and stole it for like 10 minutes and said, "I'll give it right back. Promise, I'll give it back to you."
Very fantastic.
So now we creep into Gustavo with some Iceland pics as well. So we're going to have to rename this channel the Iceland channel,
Yes.
I think, which is fine. I mean, obviously, if people don't have an interest in going after seeing what you guys have shared the last couple months, you know, they're all wonderful. I'll let you talk about these, Gustavo.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So, I mean, after those from Terry, mine looks mundane, but as you know, there are plenty of small churches to photograph, uh, different photogenic one. This one was not in the uh, 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 in uh, in the thing that I wanted to photograph, but it turned out to be good. So the four photos that I'm showing is mostly that you go to photograph something, and then you ended to having a bonus. Okay, so I went to photograph this little church, and I stopped, wait, looking for the angle and everything here, and then I have an encounter with a bird, and and a bird photographer I had. So you can show the next one.
I was gonna ask you on this shot if you tried backing up and taking a picture of the church through that basically frame of that gate.
No, I did not try that. That sounded like a good idea. As usual, I was looking for some sort of front element here with the lava rock fence. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So it is, yes, it gives you that kind of a Gothic America type of uh, vibe. Right?
Yeah. And then your
So
next shot, of course, you're obviously you're looking for your bird friends.
exactly, and it just happened that in the same location, these guys was calling. As a matter of fact, you go to the parking lot, you stop, you step out with your gear to take a landscape photo, and then there is this guy. So, but he was very accommodating. So, again, for my European friends here that do birding, like Luis and Martin, so these are species that are common to them, right? But and there was this red knot, uh, you know, that was calling and calling and calling, and it was quite accommodating. So this was taken again with the 600 PF 6.3. I love the fact that that I was able to incorporate part of the fence of the next door property to the church. Okay, and so for me that added a little bit the texture in the bark and the barbed wire. Although typically I don't like to get human elements, but in this case I was happy. And this is not a bird that I photograph here in the Americas. Okay, very accommodating. So for the next location, which I showed this before, there was also a great opportunity. Now for this one, there was a little bit more of a hike, or not a hike, but a kind of long walk from the car park to the place. So So I went to take the pictures of this other church, okay, more traditional with roof covering glass and all that kind of stuff. Very photogenic. So I knew I wanted to photograph here, and so I went there, took the camera, went with the I think probably the 24 120 millimeter with my wife, walk around, and there was another couple with a small child, and then there was a bird calling and calling, and it was also very cooperating. And I, you know how it with kids, right? He was walking to her and said, "I'm going to flush it away." So I said, "Okay, so let's." We wait until they go, finish the photo, and I said, "Let me go back all the way to the car, pick up the camera, pick up the telephoto, and see whether it works." And luckily, the bird was still there, and it was quite accommodating as well. So the moral of the story, be ready. So the next one, Jeff, and this one is a species that I really like. It's a black-tailed godwit. Okay, and one of the benefits of photographing birds in Iceland is obviously they are in their breeding plumage. Okay, so these some of these wading birds that you see here in America, mostly these are European. You see them in their more drab plumage, but this guy was there in the grasses with their breeding plumage. So again, one of those that we don't see here. So
No, very pretty
like
bird.
I like the image.
I want to go back to your last picture for a second, and just it's when you um, zoom in a little bit here, the detail on the wood,
Yes,
is
the
really
carving.
the carvings. Yeah, really really nice.
Yeah, I took a lot of close-up photos of that too as well. Eh?
I'm surprised that that it's held up as well as it has. I'm sure the weather's pretty difficult.
Uh, yeah, and sure, but actually there were some people doing some maintenance in the ground. That's probably the reason why the bird was around, because they were cutting some of the grass. So actually, this second photo, notice that it was also taken with a 600. So I wanted to go when I went back to the car and took the telephoto before walking towards where the bird was. I said, let me see if I can take the church with the telephoto and compress all the landscape, correct, so that I don't get a gray background in mountains that were not so nice. But I trying to get that kind of uh, perspective from far away, and then I walk and the bear was there.
Yeah, and very pretty bird.
Yes,
Two shots with the same lens.
Jack Sharp.
exactly. Two photos at the same location. That's what we want.
Yeah. So that's everything that Gustavo sent in. So we obviously we between you and Terry we had a little Icelandic trip journey here for the show today.
I'm sure both of us still have more, but we probably give you a reprieve next month.
No, hey, the good photo's a good photo. I mean, you could show Iceland all year if you want. I don't care.
For sure, it's very photogenic.
Now the next pictures coming up. The next set of pictures we're going to have is we got some from Luis, and then the next one after that we have Michael Drees, and then we have Mr. Bixby. So we will start with an image from Luis here, and so this is a crater in San Miguel, Azores. I'll let you guys pronounce the name of it. I'm not going to try, embarrass myself. Z8 Z8 with the f mount 20 millimeter f1.8 lens at f16, 1/125th of a second, ISO 320, minus a third of a stop EV. That's nice.
Yeah. So this is I think Luis explained to us before. This is kind of a crater and the tallest mountain, that's a volcano. Right? So it's a lake, a crater lake.
And that's nice. I like the different shades of color in the water too.
They're fantastic, beautiful. 20 millimeters.
So his second shot that he sent in was a let me get it here, of a house finch in Ash Canyon with the
Oh, wow.
Z8 with the 600 PF at F8 1/1250th 120 no excuse me 1/2500th of a second ISO 2800. This is with the Z8 with the 600 PF.
Mhm.
Yeah, see now this is where there's nothing wrong. Here you go. Where you have guidelines in photography. The rule of thirds, blah blah blah. But you know what? There's times where those rules don't give you the best result. And here, you have the main subject and
In the middle.
plunk it right in the middle of the frame. That's what you should do. That's
Yeah,
how it
for
looks.
sure.
That's how it looks the best. So don't get hung up on it's got to be a third of the way in and a third of the way down or what have you. Just this is what you should be doing when you have something like this.
I think all of those rules should just be called guidelines.
Guidelines, yeah.
Yeah,
Guidelines,
because they make sense a lot of the time, but not all of the time.
correct. Yeah, yeah. We all sometimes we just get too hung up on what we think are rules, and then some people get chastised when they don't follow the rules, and it's like photography is your interpretation, how you want to interpret the scene in front of you. So it's whatever you as the photographer want it to be and showing it the way you want to show it. So there are no rules. You do what you want to do. It's you're the one that has to be happy with it first. If somebody else likes it, it's bonus dollars, but you got to make yourself happy with your photography. The heck with everybody else. There's enough haters out there. We all know that.
Yeah.
Um,
The other thing worth mentioning on this photo is you remember when we were quite concerned about those PF lenses, starting with the 300 and then the 500, and then in the sea, the 600 and 800, about the bokeh, that the bokeh was going to have some strange patterns. Well, this photo proved that I haven't noticed any problem with any bokeh in any of
no,
these PF lenses.
it's just nice and soft.
Exactly.
It's just nice and soft. I mean, it's very pleasing to the eye.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Very good execution. Uh, and by the way, guys, the other thing is we know these half inches, correct? These are probably the most common bird here in the west of the United States, correct? But that tells you that a good execution photo on a common bird is still a good photo, correct?
yep. And his next shot here is, he was waiting. It said that this bird was unwilling to come out of the brush, so he just said, "Well, I'm just going to take a portrait shot. Then, if you don't want to cooperate, I'm going to, you just readjust mentally. You may have had a vision in your mind of what you wanted to take, and sometimes the
Exactly.
bird doesn't cooperate. You readjust. He readjusted. He says, "I'm going to take a portrait." He takes a portrait, and it works. And this is a curved billed thrasher in Green Valley, Arizona. With the Z8 with the 600 PF at F8, 1/500th of a second, ISO 720 minus a third of a stop EV. Nice sharp eyeball,
Beautiful color.
nice. I mean, and you get a sense for the environment that it's in. You got all those branches with the prickers on it, and
Exactly.
so it's an environmental portrait, is what it is. Well done.
And consider there's a little bit backlight as well, correct?
Yep.
But still you get the sense of a portrait.
Yep.
Beautiful. Thank you, Luis.
And so his last shot that he sent in is a
Meadowlark. Western meadowlark.
meadowlark south of the Sierra Vista in Arizona. It says early morning from a distance, so he went with an environmental shot, which is fine. I mean, there's environmental shots are great. I mean, I think it's you have to mix it. You need to mix it up with your photography when you're doing wildlife and birds. And sometimes, yeah, you just want to fill the frame with the bird or the insect, and other times you want it to be a second, sometimes the secondary subject, that the environment is very compelling and it just happens to have wildlife or a bird in it. Now, in this case, the bird is still the main subject, but you get a good feel for, where it likes to hang out.
Yeah, and there is nothing in the case that he got to hear singing, right? There is nothing more uh, descriptive, or if you want to call it a way, of the spring weather in the West than a Western meadowlark singing, which is what he got here.
So
Beautiful.
So that's everything from Luis. So Luis, we thank you for your images. Hopefully you'll pop in before the end of the show and say hello, and we can thank you for your contribution in person. But we do appreciate you sending stuff in, as we do everybody else. And we'll move on with an image from Michael Drees, and he says, we will bring this up here, and he writes that he just returned from a 3-week road trip that featured visits to the Badlands National Park, Yellowstone, and the Grand Tetons. So he had a wonderful journey that he went on. He says it might be of interest to the listeners that he packed 3 Nikon Z camera bodies, 7 Z series lenses, and it turned out that he only used 3 lenses: the 24 to 120, the 100 to 400, and the 800 PF. He says thanks to Gustavo for recommending the 800. He says this image was captured at Oxbow Bend on the Snake River at Grand Teton National Park with the Nikon ZF and the Nikkor 24 to 120 lens at 57 millimeters, f13 at 0.4 seconds, ISO 100. And you get that. He's got that nice pink or orangey with some purple in it in the sky, and some turquoise color, really nice colors in the sky to complement the image. And you got some color in the leaves as well. So nothing to complain about with that image.
No, beautiful.
Now his next shot, he says that he discovered a flock of mountain bluebirds feeding near Mammoth Hot Springs in Yellowstone National Park. He says
Yes.
These birds were definitely a target species on his trip. He was amazed by the azure blue color of these birds. He says, fortunately, this bird perched briefly on a yellow sagebrush, which provided a perfect complementary color. You can see how the 800 completely blurs out the background into a nice wash of color. So yeah, like Gustavo said earlier, if you're worried about any of these PF lenses not being able to hold their own versus a conventional lens design, you really have nothing to fear but fear itself, as they say. The proof is in the pudding. Everybody has seen a pretty good assortment of images from numerous people that frequent the channel here of using the 800 or the 600 PF, and I think I don't think anybody would complain about the backgrounds that you get when you're shooting wide open or one stop down, and you get really, really nice color. As long as you got good light, you get perfect color in there, and it looks really, really good, nice and soft.
And I think these Western or the mountain bluebirds, right? The best description, they are so beautiful, so blue, right? That when they go across the road and perching a fence on the road, you see it's a little bit of sky that fall from a little bit of blue sky that fall into the ground because they're so beautiful.
And this was with the Z8, like you can see it on the screen. Well, you don't know what camera it is, but it's a Z8 with the 800 PF f6.3 1/1000th of a second ISO 500. And some people might wonder, well, why shoot an image like this at 1/1000th of a second? The bird's just sitting there, and I many a time, unless I'm shooting in very low light and I'm just trying to get a shot and I'm really shooting it. I mean, sometimes I'm shooting at a 50th of a second, and knowing that, if I take a burst of shots, I'm lucky if I get one sharp image because I'm shooting at 1/50th of a second and near darkness. But when you have a reasonable amount of light, you still may want a higher shutter speed because you don't know if this bird's going to start to fly off, and you want to be able to, if it does, and you're shooting a burst, you can get a nice image of it flying off that brush as well. So when you have great light, crank your shutter speed way up because it doesn't hurt you because you're still going to have pretty darn low ISO. So it doesn't hurt you to raise up the ISO a little bit. I mean, raise up the shutter speed a little bit. And then if your background's far away, you can even, stop down a little bit more because the background's still going to be out of focus.
And Michael, I'm glad that you were able to get the mountain bluebird because you went there in September, and typically by September the breeding season is over, and the mountain bluebirds are not so easy to see, and they have dispersed. They are not displaying anymore, right? So that's a great image, and considering that you took it in September, that is fantastic.
Yeah, they're extremely sharp. I mean, just look at the detail on those little tiny branches.
Well, the other thing is with the 8 and the 9, the noise is so low that you consider an ISO of 500 as being low.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And whereas a lot, 10 years ago, 500 was high.
exactly.
Yeah. And they're like, you got no problem going to an ISO of 1600 or even 2000
Yeah.
and still be really sharp. And then you could, pick a good ISO that and like with this, you can be wide open and don't work and keep your shutter speed high because you don't know what your bird's going to do.
The people here in the mountains, we know that spring is about to come when the bluebirds arrive. By the way, the other thing that is interesting about this mountain bluebird that I learned actually from a professional photographer in Yellowstone is that they during the display season, they probably arrive in May in Yellowstone. They are completely attracted to the color blue. So if you have like a blue parker or a blue jacket and you put it on, they can get quite close to you.
So by the time they're done with you, your blue parka is white, huh?
no, not that close, but not that close, but they are not running away from you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and he has an extension tubes on his 800 because it's too long. Can't focus close enough.
Well done, Michael.
Now his next shot is very interesting. He got some a nice shot here. He was waiting for all morning long for these wolves to appear over a fresh buffalo carcass in the Hayden Valley. He says no wolves appeared that morning, but this pair of coyotes arrived shortly before sunrise and howled together in unison. It was truly a memorable moment. And
Beautiful.
This was with the Z8 with the 800 PF f6.3 at 1/800th of a second ISO 4000. And yeah, that's great.
Yes, and howling.
Yeah.
Howling. They're probably howling his name, Michael. We want you for dinner, Michael.
By the way, guys, so you have a chance, and probably next year I make a presentation. Like we can have now there the places to go to see the animals in Yellowstone. Um, eh, the listening to this guy howling, but listening to the wolf howling, that is in itself an experience. Okay? It brings something primeval in you when you hear this kind of doggies, like Roy called them, howling.
Doggies. So let's see. Michael's last shot here is I'm going to narrate it quickly, and then I'm going to walk away for a second while you guys talk about it some more. I gotta get something to drink. So his last shot here that he submitted is he says he had a wonderful time watching a family of elk on a foggy morning along the Madison River near West Yellowstone. He says eventually the small herd crossed the river, which allowed him the opportunity to photograph this large bull elk in the water. And this is once again the Z8 with the 800 PF, f6.3 at 1/1000th of a second, ISO 3200, and wonderful lighting. I mean, you got some nice little highlights on the trees in the background, and in the foreground it's lit up nice, and absolutely man, when you get lucky with the light, boy, doesn't that make a huge difference. I'll be right back.
Yeah, and the fog as well. Huh?
Yeah. Then that really adds to the shot.
Yes.
You know, a little bit of fog there.
And I like Michael, that the photo is kind of more incorporate the environment. It brings the mood of the it brings the story. A photo taken early in the morning with the sun peeking from the nearby hill, and bringing that those grasses in the foreground, in good light. So good photo. It looked like you did very well, Michael.
Yeah, it's a calendar shot.
Yes.
All I got to say is good luck, everybody, in trying to pick out 3 out of everything that we're seeing here tonight.
Well, I already have 5.
I'll probably end up spending more time picking out 3 than I did putting all these slides together, all these pictures together. So that's everything from Michael. So thank you very much, Michael, for your contributions as always. It's wonderful shots, and you must have had pinch me moments here going on a trip like this and seeing everything that you saw. Wonderful stuff. Now we're going to move on to Mr. Bixby.
And after that, we have.
After Roy, we've got Martin Hild. We got pictures from Martin. And then we got Randall's pictures after that.
All right. Good.
So let me back up here on my list. And Roy, I'll let you narrate as you see fit. We're going to bring up your first image. And
that's my wife taking a picture with a phone.
now, what are you feeding? What are you feeding the bird there?
Stir fry.
Really?
Beef. They're fairly tame. They'll land on you if you're not careful.
Well, if you're feeding them, you're going to have friends for life. I'll tell you that.
Oh, they come every morning now.
Yeah.
Lovely.
If my wife's plants were in the way, I'd get closer.
Yeah, he's got a series of shots here. Here's one on his arm.
Ah.
Oh, wow.
Is that a kookaburra?
It is.
Wow.
Now the bird's fairly large looking, but I'm assuming it really isn't that. Doesn't weigh much of anything, huh?
No, most birds are pretty light.
Yeah. They're almost like hollow, no matter how big they are. They don't really have a lot of weight to them unless you get into pelicans and stuff. Pelicans could be like 12, 14 pounds. But other than that, most of the birds don't weigh much.
That's the problem with flying.
Yeah. You scratching its
Oh.
beak there, Roy? Oh yeah. You got a pal.
Yes, they're lovely birds.
Nice and quiet.
Not so quiet.
Look at what Eva wrote. Agree, Eva.
Now, what do you call this one, Roy? What do you call this?
It's an echidna.
Echidna.
It lives in the garden. It's like a hedgehog, but it's a marsupial.
Is it Is it related to like porcupines?
Not at all.
Not at all.
No.
This is one of the most primitive mammals, correct? It laid eggs.
It does.
Wow.
They're lovely.
So does it like to hide in the rocks or go in the rocks?
Its nest is its hole in the ground is somewhere there.
Ah, okay.
And Roy, they are somehow endangered, correct?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay.
We see them every day nearly
Not in your house. They are not endangered.
in the garden.
Exactly.
Kookaburras come in the house if we leave the door open.
And this photo was taken also by your wife or by you?
Or the wife.
Okay.
iPhone.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
And then he has
That's in the garden too.
a pair of troublemakers here.
Oh, they're no trouble. They got terrible squawk though.
Okay.
So the next one coming up, Roy says, is a flower after the butterfly flew away twice.
Yes, I got caught.
So Roy, that last photo of the two cockatoos, that's also from the iPhone?
No, that's from my D800 with probably the 180 to 600 on it.
Okay. That's a very intimate photo.
Mm.
Nice. I like it.
I try to get in close.
Exactly.
It had a lovely butterfly on it. About half a second before I pressed the button.
Now, Gustavo's going to tell you should have had something set up with pre-capture.
Yeah, I'm going to do that from now on.
And then you got a couple more flower shots in here. This one with a bee.
Ooh.
It's a strange looking flower.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just starting to bloom. The bee wasn't quick enough. I got him. That's the 100 MC and the Z8 again.
Mhm.
And then you got a picture here of another flower with the 105.
Yeah, I think there's a bee in there somewhere, but he got out of sight. There was also a butterfly on it, but he got away. I'm getting slow in my old age.
No. That's lovely.
So now you get to see some of Roy's friends that he sees in the early morning, and spoils.
Beautiful. Well, congratulations to you and Stella.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Excellent.
thanks for sending those in. Those are all the images that Roy and Stella sent in, and nice. We got to see the extended family eating stir fry. I like that.
Great
Yeah,
job, Stella.
I was trying to figure out if it was if you had sliced some kind of a fruit or something. I couldn't figure out what it was. Fake me out. And we got Robert Daniels popped in as he's in here. So hello to Robert as I glance over on my laptop here. And so now we're going to move on to some pictures from Martin Hild. And we'll throw up his first one here. Martin is very good about having very good descriptions that he puts together of his shots here. He says this shows 2 flower stems of the autumn's lady's tresses orchid. He says their bloom usually signifies the end of summer here in his home state. This picture was taken unusually early at the end of August. He says he loves taking pictures of the plants at sunrise. As they are tiny, it is kind of hard to get a picture without any grass. He says in Germany, they've become pretty rare because they're depending on sheep grazing and unfertilized soil.
Oh,
Taken with the Z6 II in the Nikkor MC 105, ISO 100, 1/2500th of a second, f3 minus 2/3 of a stop, exposure compensation. So then his next image here, he says, is taken from a photo challenge.
okay.
He said his brother made him do it, so he's blaming his brother. So if you don't like the image, blame his brother. He says the topic of that week was hands. He says, as you see, summer is truly over, and that is Central European autumn for you. Taken close to his home at Wiesbaden's Second Ring Road. Taken with the Z6 II, the Nikkor 50mm 1.8 S-series lens. ISO 4000, 1/30th of a second, f5 minus 1/3 EV. And yeah, at 1.8, well, he says he took it at f5, but even there, I mean, the background is completely dissolved.
Yeah.
Now his third image here is he says shows grass panicles. He says he had to look this one up. He says, I hope it makes sense. He says in evening counterlight, he loved the glow of the grass plants against the dark background. This is the Z9 with the Nikkor 180 to 600 at ISO 400 f6.3, 1/800th of a second at 560 millimeters, minus 2 stops of exposure compensation. Yeah, so he really wanted to darken up that background and just well, no pun intended, focus on that foreground element with that nice light that he had on it.
Beautiful. Thank you.
And then he says, this his last photo here. He says is his favorite photo of the 4 that he sent in. This is very interesting. He says it shows a common wall lizard hiding in a crack of a light red colored stone wall at close by a vineyard. It says the stones are massively overexposed to get the light in the crack right.
Wow.
So yeah, so he had to blow out to try to get enough light on that lizard. He had to blow out the rest of it, but it makes for a very interesting photo, I think. He said it looks like a torn. He says it kind of looks like a torn piece of paper. He says they probably don't like the weather either. This was with the Z9 and the Nikkor MC 105 S-series lens, ISO 2200, 1/160th of a second, f8, and he went plus 2 2/3 stop of EV.
Wow.
And that's why you got that everything else is whited out, but you didn't have a choice. You don't have a flash with you, a fill flash with you, or whatever. This is the only thing you can do. Well, or your other option, of course, is if you want to spend an awful lot of time in post. But this is an interesting way of going. One of many choices you could make with a photo like this, and it gives you definitely an interesting look.
And tell the story about the lizard that live in the cracks.
Yeah. So those are all the images from Martin. So Martin, thank you so much. I know you'll probably be
Thank
watching the show tomorrow, but we appreciate you sending in your images as always. Thank you so much.
Excellent.
And now the next one's coming up are from Randall. So we got Randall, and then followed by Ava, and then after Ava we have Mr. Ishii sent in an image, So Randall, let me bring yours up, and I'll let you speak to them, sir. Give me a second.
All right. So I'm getting better at this. I think this morning I got the best pictures. I had something like 8 birds in the bird bath. Well, what I found out, you can see the base around the bird bath. I started putting bird feed down there, and all of a sudden birds came out of nowhere. So I had a whole bunch there before I took this shot, and you see that bird in the background? That's a big blackbird or a crow. And as it approached, it scared off all the other birds except for the one that's on the bird bath. I believe I was shooting this with what is it? Yeah, the Canon RF2.
Yeah, you got the RF 200 to 800 lens.
Yeah. And I've been practicing with the Z8 and the Sony A7R5 with the teleconverters, and those will be up next month. But they don't have the 200 and 800, but they do have the 180 to 600. So if you put a 1.4 teleconverter on there, then you can match it. But this was a wide shot. And I think the second one.
Which is now. Here's the second one.
Okay, so he's taking a bath, but you'll see that blackbird turned around, so he has moved to the tub. To the bird bath, and then you can see a bird right on the road, just behind the bird bath to the right. But this is still at 400. So I've been learning to put it at 600, which is like closer, and then you see less of the pedestal, but more of the bath. And I can't put it. I have to leave a little bit of the column underneath, because then the reflection of the water, you'll lose focus, especially when they start bathing, flapping their wings and stuff. So it's just a learning process, but this was like 3 or 4 days ago, and those were the best shots, but I'm getting better all the time. And but this is with the Canon system. I just
we got a preview of some of your choices.
Right. So I got the Canon, which is on the right-hand side. I believe it's the Sony in the middle with the Z8 by the mirror. And then to the left is the Leica SL2S. So I picked up the 200 800 and the 60 to 600 within 2 days. They came up to the camera store on the 200 800 out of nowhere, and I'm always there, so I grabbed that up. And then the 60 to 600 they had on sale; it was used, so I snagged that. And then, of course, you see the 180 to 600 by the mirror, and I love that lens. And then I got the 150 to 600 Sigma. So the 60 to 600 for the Sony, and the 150 to 600 for the L mount, all right, is both by Sigma, and they're both good. All four are great lenses. I shot it with the Z6 III, the 24 megapixel. So the Leica 24 megapixel was good also, but you can see the top three. 160 megapixel, and the other two are the 45, the Canon and the Z8. And testing them out. But yeah, fantastic pictures, fantastic lenses. And the one thing I've learned is you fill up that bird bath, you put the bird seed down at the base, and just wait for them to show up.
Let them have fun. And let them have fun.
So I put up 2 videos today of showing all the birds, in the bird bath, and it was fantastic. So I thought they already went south, but no, they're still around because it was almost 90 degrees today, so we're still having summer here. Yeah.
Well, I think here we were lucky if we hit 75.
Oh, I would love to have 75, but
Oh, I loved it. I'm going to make you feel bad. I loved 75 with a breeze too.
I bet you get snow also. You can keep the snow.
No, if we get snow here in Myrtle Beach, it's like a quarter of an inch if you're lucky, and it's gone in a couple hours.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We hardly ever get snow here. If you do, I tell you, if you get anything that sticks on the road, I mean, it just, the whole state shuts down because they have no sand trucks, they have no plows, they have nothing, and basically you get the smallest amount of snow in South Carolina and everything is just shut down. Everybody just stays home. No one goes to work. It's crazy, especially when, like for me, where you lived where you could have 12 inches or more come down at one time, and you're trying to drive home from work and hoping that they plowed the road pretty good so you could get home,
Yeah.
So Randall, how did you manage to get this photo without you being in the mirror?
I've done that in the past, but what I did was I was standing on top of the bed.
I'm going to say you're standing on top of the bed.
If you look in the mirror at the very top, you'll see my foot.
See your foot, yeah.
As best as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then you sent in a few here of your
Right.
one of
So
your cameras on a tripod
with the Z8 and the 180 to 600. So I had it on the wrong focus system. They have the birds, but I had it on human. And I said, why is this not focusing? And then when I looked in the menu, I said, well, that's why. I mean, so I had to wait 2 days until I finally got the shots today. And I did 2 clips that I put up on YouTube where I had a lot of birds in that bird bath. So I found this for that. And that's a close-up shot of the Z8 with the 180 to 600. And I love that tripod too, the Surrey tripod. So
who made that strap that you have on the camera there?
I you know what? I want to say Peak Design because they do make leather straps, but I got it at the camera store. They recommended that to me, and I says okay. But they're all together. But it's a rope with leather, and then you can see. I think it's a Peak Design going through the loop, so you can't see the red tag because it's behind the leather strap right against the camera. But I love it. I also got a lens strap too for the lens. If I decide to hold it so I can get better stabilization. But I find with those long telephoto zoom lenses, that tripod right there is the best. So,
Well, we thank you for sending. These are all your images that you sent in to me, so we appreciate you sending them in, and glad that you're continuing your experimentation with different brands and different lenses and trying out the teleconverters and all that kind of stuff, because then you get to pass on what you're learning to everybody else out there, which is great. So we appreciate you taking the time to do all that.
and I appreciate you showing it. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. Thank you so much. And so let's see. The next image is coming up, and hopefully she's still here. I don't know, because easy to lose track here in the can't watch the chat too much here while I'm doing this. But the next shots are from Ava. So we'll bring up her first image here. And so this was, so she wrote to me here, and she said she was inspired by something that we had suggested, which was to dig through old files and send in something that you have done in the past. So she says she dug through her old hard drives to find something, and excuse me, originally she says that she only had a point and shoot camera. Pretty much her entire back catalog is snapshots. Then she started making beaded jewelry and needed to take better pictures for jurying into art shows. So she took a class at a bead show on photographing jewelry, brought her first digital interchangeable lens camera, an Olympus E-420 that had 2 kit lenses. And this was a 10 megapixel digital 4/3 camera. And she started taking photos of her artwork like this. And she says she's pretty sure at this time she had no idea what she was doing with the camera. She says this was shot in aperture priority, f/22, ISO 100, 1.3 second exposure, minus 0.7 exposure compensation. And this is with the Olympus, like you said, E-430 and a 14 to 42 millimeter lens at 37 millimeter, which is a 74 millimeter full frame equivalent. Shot in JPEG, straight out of camera. This is a beaded peyote stitch choker made using Japanese glass seed beads with a Swarovski crystal in the center. And she says it took a very long time to make. The background is a piece of black acrylic plexiglass that the choker is laying on. So that's cool. And she went back and dug these out of the archives, as they say.
Very good.
Let me just see if I got. Want to make sure I'm not missing. I got to get Roy back in here. There we go. And let me get back to where I was. Oops. Sorry about that. When I'm moving the mouse around, all sorts of weird stuff happens, man. Now, her next shot that she sent in here, give me a minute. Okay, this is, she says, she's like, putting together a story for me here on her early days of photography. So she says now she's armed with this fancy camera. Her holiday snapshots improved, as she says, slightly. Here are a couple she's willing to share using the Olympus E-420, both from a cruise to the Mexican Riviera. This was shot at 1/1250th of a second, f3.5, ISO 100 at a 14 millimeters, which is a 28 millimeter full frame equivalent. She says evidently in manual mode, so she was learning. Shot in JPEG, straight out of camera. So she's got the 2 Carnival cruise ships docked side by side, which is a neat perspective that she captured here.
Exactly.
I actually remember those ships, seeing those ships a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. um, so then she sends this next image was shot at 1/100th of a second, f4.5, ISO 100 at 15 millimeters, which is a 30 millimeter full frame equivalent. Again, straight out of the camera JPEG. She says, I'm sure I never knew what RAW was at that time, and also thinks she was using photos or at best aperture back in those days. So we're going back a little point in time here. I used to have aperture on my Mac many years ago.
Yes.
The colors out of this camera were really good. She says that she doesn't think she appreciated it at the time, just how on point the color science was. But the alligator enclosure, she had the really striking watercolors, and remembers trying to do her best to capture it. You got all these different shades of orange, everything from orange, gold, and orange to where it darkens up a bit.
Yeah.
And well done. Interesting viewpoint. So then the next shots, she's going to blame Gustavo for.
Okay.
Okay. So she says, now back to present day. Inspired by Gustavo's wonderful presentation on photographing hummingbirds, here are a couple of her attempts over the last week or so. This first shot is with natural light only. Z8 with the 400 millimeter f4.5 lens at f4.5, 1/6400th of a second, ISO 2500, processed with Topaz Photo AI. And you don't see any noise in this image. And she was only at ISO 2500 anyway, so it wouldn't have been bad to begin with on a Z8. And well done. Nice, some nice color in the background, and you got enough light. There's enough light on that hummingbird flying in where you got good, separation and definition. Now her, let me see if it's related. So her last shot here is going to be another hummingbird shot, which is also Gustavo's fault.
Okay.
And so this shot she used fill flash. So she says to fill and help freeze the motion, she used a fill flash. Had a strobe up on a stand level with the flower and the tree. She says, as I knew the setting sun would illuminate the back of the hummingbird and give a lovely rim light through the wings, but the face would have been a little too dark. So she used the fill flash to kind of lighten up the face a little bit. And she says, I think the flash ended up being about 45 degrees off, which was about perfect, using a Godox TT685N with a Godox diffusion dome to soften the output. She thinks she was shooting in manual at about 1/8 output on the flash, 1/800th of a second at f4.5 with the Z8 with the 400 millimeter 4.5 lens, ISO 640. And she used Lightroom denoise on this shot. Came out nice.
Nice indeed.
Very nice color.
Sorry, Eva. Eva, but it's nice.
And nice color along the back.
Exactly.
Back of the hummingbird. Really pretty. Really
I
pretty.
love the flower too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, you see, you learned from Mr. Gustavo very well. Nicely done, Ava. Thanks so much for sneaking in these images for the photo review. And we have one image here from Mr. Ishii. He sent this in. This was with the Z6 III and the 600 PF wide open at f6.3. And he did not provide any information about the location or anything of this shot. But like I said, he sent this one into me on the email, so I says, well, I'll put it in the show here.
Yeah. Petronas Towers, Kuala Lumpur.
What is that?
These are the Petronas Towers of Kuala Lumpur.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, John, if you're listening.
Love the color. So
He's probably out having lunch right now. So
yeah, he's in. He's just showing the chat there.
Oh, okay. There he
Yeah,
is. Yeah, wow, cool picture. Haha. Okay, John. You now. How did you know exactly when I was going to put your picture on? I did not send you any text messaging.
But you see the light in the some of the buildings. This must be like the last ray of sunshine there.
Thank you, John. We got to coerce the wife to send some pictures in next month,
Okay.
and for you to send in some more as well.
He had his 8th anniversary today.
Oh, it's his wedding anniversary today?
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations. Mine was 3 days ago. So our the next shot's coming up, so people can get prepared. We've got shots from Anita Stewart, and then we have a series of shots from Scuba Rossi, and then we have David Stewart shots coming up after that. So we will jump here to Anita's. I hear my dog shaking her head in the other room, so I'm expecting to be bothered shortly here. So anyway, we'll put up the first shot from Anita, and this is she describes this as sunrise over Lesser Slave Lake in Alberta, f4.5, 4 seconds, 28 millimeter, ISO 50. This is using the Sigma 28 millimeter lens.
Nice, dramatic.
Very nice. So she sent a lot of sunrise shots, which was cool. We don't really get a lot of sunrise shots sent in, so it's nice to see them. Nice to see some.
Actually, this one was the sunset, but they look the same.
Yeah.
Her next shot was from here is downstream from the falls. This is f13, 1/15 of a second at 70 millimeters at ISO 50. This is using the Z mount 24-70 lens.
Wow.
That's cool. I like the steps there. At least I'm assuming I guess there's steps on the right hand side of the image.
Yep.
Is that I'm assuming that's like a railroad bridge?
Yeah, it's we were set up almost underneath the road bridge. I was set up beside Anita, and I was under the road bridge. So one of my shots is going to be very similar. But that's rail in the background.
Yep.
It's gorgeous.
And then her next shot here is, let's see, at Waterton Lakes National Park, Alberta. This is f10, 1/12/50th of a second, 34.5 millimeters, ISO 200. This is with the Z mount 24-70 as well.
I think you've got the notes wrong for this, Jeff, because this is also at Lumbrick Falls, except it's looking downstream.
Okay.
Okay. I guess I'm reading one step ahead. Well, you'll tell me when you see the next picture. Yeah, I got one where she says downstream from the falls, F13, 1/15 of a second with the 24 to 70 at 70 millimeters, ISO 50. Yeah, I jumped ahead when my eyeballs are scanning the wrong paragraph here. And then her last shot she sent in is this shot here, which apparently is the Waterton Lakes National Park.
Yeah, there was a forest fire went through there 7 years ago.
Hmm.
So the trees are still standing and they'll be there for a while. But you can see the new growth come in.
Yeah. Well, they'll probably pretty much be there forever until nature knocks them down, because we've got so many. I'll tell you, we have so many dead trees down here, and it's not because of fires as so much, at least in the park areas. It's because we've had too much flooding, too many. The tides are higher, and the water's coming in on the roads more, and there's too much exposure to the salinity now from the ocean, and a lot of the trees, they can handle some salt water, but a lot of them have died and are now they're just standing, and they're lifeless husks now, just like a forest of dead trees now because of the salt water. And we've asked questions in the past. Why don't they plant trees in there that can handle the salt water? There are, if you're not sure what those trees would be, then all you got to do is make a phone call to any of the wildlife areas in Florida, which constantly have which live in salt water or brackish water, and I don't know why it's so difficult to. They made it out like, they were working with someone to figure out what kind of plants to use. It's like, I'm sure if I spent a half an hour on the internet, I could give them a whole list of different kinds of brush and plant life that would be able to tolerate the salt water. So I don't know. It's just always a lot of excuses as to why nothing gets done.
They probably need a supervisor's permission to phone out of state. It could be long distance for them.
Yeah. Well, they should be able to actually, on the other side of the street, you got bodies of water with the Brook Green Gardens area where you have water tours and stuff, and you got a lot of trees in there that are surviving pretty good, but a lot of them are different species. So they don't have to go far to get the information. It just seems to be a general lack of enthusiasm to really try to figure anything out, unfortunately. So thank you, Anita, for sending in those images, and we're gonna hit on the Scubarazzi shots here in a second, and then we'll be running into Mr. Stewart's images. So Scubarazzi sent in. Now, this is a lens that I will bring up in discussion later on after the show. So his first shot, I'm not going to tell you what it is. I mean, it was funny. He says, I'm not going to say what it is. Let the panelists guess what it is. And I didn't want to. I told him, I says, I hate to tell you, but I kind of guessed right away when I was looking at it. But he took this shot that you're looking at here is with the new or newer Laowa ultra macro lens. He took this picture with. Has an extremely shallow depth of field. It's a very unique lens because it's a 25 millimeter f2.8, 2.5 to 5 times ultra macro lens for the Nikon Z mount. And he used for lighting, he used a a Laowa front LED ring light, and this is at 1/30th of a second, f8 ISO 160, and it's 12 images that are stacked together. And he says, because now the reason they made this ultra macro lens and a 25 millimeter focal length is because they felt like if they were with it being wider, that they would have a little bit better depth of field versus, wide angle lenses typically have, do have better depth of field than a longer focal length. So they decided to make this ultra wide lens at the 25 millimeter focal length to try to take advantage of trying to get a little extra depth of field. So he says he had to take 12 pictures that he focused manually and then stacked in Photoshop. Biggest challenge was, he says, like for all three macros, is to light the subject and not to have white reflections. So has anybody figured out what this might be?
Well, it's a fish, right?
No, it's not a fish.
Look like the eye or something.
That is correct. It's the eye of something, and you will see by the next image that he sent in. You will then know exactly what it was, which I will now bring that image up right now. It is the eye of a dragonfly.
Oh, wow.
So he found this dragonfly. It had just died. Okay, it had just died. So that allowed him to take these macro shots and stack them, because obviously if you had a living subject, you would not be able to do a focus stack of an eye of a dragonfly if it was alive, because it wouldn't stay there long enough for you to do that. Not to get gross or anything, but yeah, a lot of people will try to find bugs that are dead and then, and put them, keep them in their natural environment and, move them and pose them in a certain way and then take close-up shots with them. Because in a lot of cases, you certainly wouldn't be able to do stacked photos of them if they were living. And I hate to say it, back when I was a kid, it was not uncommon for people to capture insects and put them in their freezer.
Yeah.
To slow them down. They'd put them in the freezer for a little bit of time and take them out. They didn't kill them, but it slowed their metabolism way down. And then they would put them back in the natural environment and they would take pictures of them. And so that was not an uncommon thing to do. Obviously not something that most people would not do that today. I mean, it was, kind of unethical and cruel to the insect, but that's what was commonly done many, many, many years ago. And he says, you took, can't do such pictures of a dragonfly if it's a living animal due to the depth of field and focus stacking, which we just talked about. The subject moves a little bit, the stacking doesn't work. Here he took this with a more conventional macro lens. He says, way easier to shoot like this, as the Z8 can use the autofocus to do the focus series by itself. And then he then took another shot, and he took this one 4 days after the last, this shot and the one prior. So this next image that he took is of the eye of the dragonfly as well. And he makes a point of saying, this is 4 days after the first two images that you saw, and you can see that the coloration. We'll go back to the other one, and go to this one. The coloration of the eye has changed because the insect is dried out.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a color shift with the insect because its body's drying out. There's no fluid in the eye anymore, right? It's all dried out, so the color changes. So he did an image stack on this again with that same ultra macro lens. He used a Godox flash this time, 1/100th of a second, f8 ISO 160, and a 12 exposure stack with that 25 millimeter f2.8, 2.5 to 5 times ultra macro lens. So you get some. when you get this close, you definitely can spook some people with these shots. You know?
But good experimentation there. Correct?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Now, I sent them some personal kudos in the email response on these next images, and as well with anybody who's a bird photographer, because the next series of shots, we would know how difficult it would be to be able to capture these when you're trying to get images of swallows in flight. Um, it you can't have much more of a challenging subject, because not only are they fast, but their flight patterns are irregular, to say the least. It's not like they just fly in a horizontal line. They go up and down and zip up and down and left and right, and they dance all over the place. And they're very, very quick in their maneuvering in flight. And to be able to get a shot like this, he says he spent about an hour trying to photograph some swallows in flight. He says it helps if you could take the images over a lake or a river, but it's very hard to get them in flight, as they're not very big and they are very agile. But he says, but again, the Z8 delivers. And so this was captured with the Z8 with the Z180 to 600 millimeter zoom, and 1/3200th of a second at f6.3, ISO 1600, and he says this is at 600 millimeters, slightly cropped. And to say slightly cropped is a big deal too, because normally when they're zipping around and whatever, if you manage to get them, at least for me, when they're in flight, it's more than slightly cropped. It's very much so cropped. So he must have had this sucker kind of like coming right at him, and he was able to get it. So his and as he says in this next shot, which confirms what I was just saying, here you got the insect in front of him. He says the swallow did fly towards him. Only on the final picture did he see it was about to catch an insect. On the next picture that you're going to see after this, you can't see it anymore. He says, so in this case, 20 pictures per second was too slow, but it's impressive that the Z8 can focus even if the bird does not fly parallel to the photographer. Yeah, the harder shot for a camera is if you have a bird in flight coming straight at you or pretty much straight at you, versus going across the frame. It's much harder for it to focus accurately, and in here, to get the insect in front of the bird like this which he may not have even have noticed that as he was taking the picture. He may not have noticed that until he put it on the computer, and he says, "Oh wow, look, I got the insect in the picture too." So I mean, very, very well done. Z8 as before with the 180 to 600 Z mount zoom, 1/4000th of a second. Yeah, you're going to be shooting. You're going to shoot swallows. You're going to be 1/4000th to 1/5000th of a second, somewhere in that range, if you want to get them, for the most part, sharp where it matters. You still might even end up with a little bit of blur. I mean, there is a little bit of blurriness on the wing on the right hand side. It has a slight blur to it, but that doesn't take away from the image. I mean, these puppies are really difficult to shoot.
Impossible shots.
Yeah, they really, really are. So then his let's see. So his last shot here. Let me make sure I got the verbiage up on the screen right, so I don't misspeak. Okay, his last shot here, another incredible shot. He says it was a very lucky shot. He got an insect over the water, and you can see the reflection in the water. So you can see the reflection with the insect in the bird's mouth, and in the reflection as well. I mean, really, really super. He says he's very happy to get the shot. He says he had a series of 5 pictures, but this one was the best. Same gear that we've already described. You know, the 180 to 600 with the Z8. This is 1/4000th of a second. Once again, wide open at f6.3, ISO 1600. And pick on us here, Paul, saying it's slightly cropped. So he has a question for Mr. Bixby. He says, with the macro images, okay, going back to the dragonflies, he says he was struggling a lot with the light. He says maybe Roy Wallaby, or was it Bixby, question mark, might have some good tips. I think he might have very good knowledge as a product photographer.
Use flash.
Yeah.
Stack them and use a flash.
Now, now would you recommend just having an off-camera flash, or would you go, you know how they used to sell those flashes, the rings that had multiple flashes on them back in the day?
I refuse to talk about ring flash. I hate them. They flatten the image too much. They're for forensic photographers, not for real ones.
Okay.
A very small flash is all you need.
Well, it was a dead dragonfly, though.
You don't need much of a flash to take macro shots.
Right, it was a dead dragonfly, so it kind of was a forensic shot.
It was.
It's like he's like the Quincy of the insect world.
No, it's a John Ishii shot.
John Ishii shot. Yeah.
Ring lights can be useful, but I'm just not very fond of them.
Well, I mean, you know the one that Nikon used to make, though, where it was individual flashes that you can move around.
The R1C1 system came with SP 200 flashes.
Those weren't bad, right?
I still use it.
I don't know I guess you could still buy them, right? Used.
Yeah, the Mikey one's probably a lot cheaper. The only trouble with the Nikon one is the batteries it uses are a bit funny. The little flashes have this funny little battery in them.
So he passed on to us that he wasn't sure if he'd make it this weekend to be in the chat because he has some plans, and he just sends kind regards from Europe and wishes us having a great show. And of course, everybody sending in these pictures makes sure that we have a great show. So thanks as always for sending in images. They're always something very, very interesting. And so we appreciate it, and hopefully you'll be able to watch this tomorrow or the next day. And so we move on now we are getting near the end of our images here. So the next group of images, give me a second, I got to move my cheat sheet over.
I'll talk to these.
I'll let David talk to these images that he sent in. So we will put up his first one here.
This one was shot on my D850 with a 12 millimeter Laowa, and it's fully manual. The lens doesn't talk to anything. So I had some other shots I wanted to take, so I took out the 12, and I have a 15 and also. But this one, because it's on the 850, was F mount. But it's one of these lenses. You put it out at f5.6. It's an f2.8 lens. Then you don't have to worry about the focus.
Exactly.
Well, what I like about this shot is like the car in the foreground on the far left. It definitely stretched out a little bit, huh?
Yeah.
That's a new stretch version of the family sedan.
And there's very little barrel distortion on this lens. Like I'm looking up a bit, but the lines are still fairly straight.
They'd be straighter if you weren't looking up.
Yep. If I was using my Nikkor, my zoom, well, it would look like a barrel. Yeah, 12.
And then the next shot David sent in was tied in with a discussion that he had with us last week. So I like this shot a lot. I mean, I like farm equipment and stuff like that.
Yeah, this one is the back end of a combine. He's combining grain, and the header on this is 45 feet wide.
Wow.
And the guy in charge or owned the land or whatever had 8 of these going in the field at the same time. And you know, it took no time to combine a couple hundred acres.
So, David, do you think that these farmers rent this equipment, or do you? I mean, I would think it would be pretty hard for them to afford to buy it, right?
I'm not too sure of the agreement that he has, because the way they were describing it didn't make sense. It is that he gets new equipment every year and sells it back. Yeah.
Okay.
But that way he doesn't have to worry about maintenance. You know.
Yeah, and I like this. It's cool. And then your next image.
Mm.
Oh, wow. Gorgeous.
And this is a shot handheld at a 1/6 of a second on my Z8 with my 24 to 120. It says 27.5 millimeters, but and I didn't play with the colors.
I'm glad you shot it at 27.5 because if you shot it at 27, it would have wrecked the whole image.
Yeah, it would have been too wide, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is nice. So is that a little bit of a mini waterfall there in the?
Yeah, and that's a waterfall there. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool.
And I'm surprised at how slow that I can shoot with my 8 and 9 handheld. That like this is no problem. Like this was handheld at a 1/6 of a second. You know, and I've actually gone down to a second if I could brace my elbows, and it's still sharp.
Is this like in a park?
Yep. This is a Japanese garden in Lethbridge, Alberta.
Okay.
Nice.
That's pretty. Yeah, this is somewhere you can sit and just relax all day and just enjoy the view.
Oh, it was great in there. You know, you didn't want to be rushed. You know, it's you could shoot something, come back 10 minutes later and shoot it again.
What stabilization did you use, David?
I planted my 2 feet on the ground. No, I've been shooting for a long time without any.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just like shooting a rifle. You got to watch your breathing, and you got to watch everything. You know, and it's like the technique is very similar.
Yeah, and too with this lens, it's not like it's a heavy lens. You know, the 24 to 120 isn't very heavy.
It's not a heavy lens, and it's not a heavy camera.
Yeah.
You know, and but when I was there, I had my 9 and my 100 to 400 on it, so it was kind of holding me down to keep me from bouncing. So maybe that's what I was using, Randall.
Oh, wow.
And then David's last image here is let me get this one here and find it. There we go.
And this is an experimental shot. And after this experiment, I'm not going to make this mistake again.
Mm.
I use my ZF and my 24 millimeter because with my ZF it can only go down to 4 seconds. So then you gotta push the ISO. And but this light painting was done with the brake lights on Anita's truck.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you were shooting this on Mars with the red rocks, you know?
No, it wasn't quite in Mars, but it's I was using a 24 and Anita was using a 28, and we didn't have much color, but and there was very little movement. But I figured I would try my ZF, and after this is I will. I've got 4 other cameras that are much better for Aurora, so I'm going to use them instead. But it like I'll use my ZF for doing a test shot to see if there's something there, because with the 40 f2 is you can crank the ISO, shoot it wide open, and you can tell if you got some colors or not. And then
So how long do you press the brake pedal? The 4
actually,
seconds?
I'm not too sure if it was the brake pedal or just the park lights, you know, like
Okay.
you know, and is I was shooting every 20 seconds, and this was one of the ones that came in the series, and it looked nice.
Yeah.
But
Definitely need to try it again because it's a interesting work.
it shows you how little light that you need for light painting.
Exactly.
Yeah, and and when I'm out shooting like this, I'll use the intervalometer. I'm not so worried about people running by with the lights in the vehicles and all the rest of this stuff, because sometimes you get a good shot out of it, and then lots of times you don't. And so it's no use getting worked up, because sometimes you get something that's good like this. But it's if I was using my Z8, it'd be totally different.
Oh, I think it was a worthwhile experiment.
Well, yeah, I treat all of this stuff as an experiment, you know, to see what works. Because if you experiment enough and you remember the results, you don't make the same mistake twice. And the next time it just becomes so much easier.
Hey, remember, one man's mistake is another man's success. Remember that.
Yeah, and those 2 bright stars on the left side are from the Big Dipper. The rest of the Big Dipper is to the left, and you can't see the Northern Star. Yes, you can see the Northern Star. It's at the top, or near the top, but it's nowhere near as bright. But the other thing is, when you're shooting like this, you pick up a lot of stars, and it's hard to get a noticeable constellation other than you get all these stars, and I'll argue with you that's noise or that's stars, because it could be either, but it's probably a star.
Well, what's the longest shutter speed? Well, I mean, what's the slowest shutter speed you use before you feel that you need to be really on a star tracker type of setup versus just taking a shot?
It's not that simple. It depends on your focal length of your lens, and it depends on your shutter speed, and those, and Oh yeah, and shutters, and it also depends on your resolution of your sensor, and all the formulas that that are that you hear, they're all historical, based on film. They don't apply for modern cameras because you got to make things shorter, and so that you can't go very long without using a star tracker. It's if you're using a 14 millimeter lens, you can 20 seconds, I think, is too long. You're probably closer to 15.
Okay.
And if you're using your 45 megapixel camera or sensor, it's probably less than that. But when I shoot the Aurora, my exposures I try to keep them less than 4 seconds.
Okay.
But if you're down south where Gustavo is, chances are he's got to go 30 seconds. You know.
All right. Well, that's it for David's images. Thanks a lot, Dave.
Yeah, and if you're thinking about shooting the Aurora tonight, stay home and have a whiskey. You get more enjoyment. You probably see more Aurora.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you drink the whole bottle, you'll see a lot of different things.
Exactly.
But have company when you do it.
Yeah, have company when you do it. The last set of images, unfortunately, are mine, so you have to suffer through mine. So let me find them here. So this was a day where the lighting was really bad. And I probably took 1,700 pictures this day. We had great entertainment with usually 3 skimmers together that were following each other on the marsh side. But the lighting, I mean, when the lighting was just not very good, and so a lot of the shots just basically got tossed into the digital graveyard, as they say. But there were a handful that I liked how they came out, as we got a little bit more light in the morning. But they start off their feeding pattern really, really early in the morning. So you work with what you have. You don't have any say in it. You can't bribe them with sardines and tell them when to show up at a certain time. So you just work with what you have. So anyway, this was one of the skimmers that this was with the Z9 with a 600 PF wide open at 6.3, 1/2500th of a second. ISO. This was shot, showing you how little light there was. This was shot at ISO 20,000.
Wow.
ISO 20,000. So obviously I used topaz denoise on this image afterwards, but I'm pretty satisfied with how it came out, all things considered. Now the next image was my comic relief image with the skimmer deciding to lose a little weight along its flight path here. And I just like this because I like the texture of the grasses and the reeds in the foreground, and then everything being blurred out and the bird being sharp, and then the little activity that he or she was doing gives you a little comic relief. This was what's that?
You gotta work on the poop. So
Yeah. Well, some pictures I just like au naturel, as they say, right?
exactly.
So most all these shots will be with the Z9, I think, with the 600 PF. This was wide open as well. This was 1/2000th of a second at ISO. This is an ISO 16,000 shot. and you know, Gustavo did a nice presentation not really so long ago where he was demonstrating really that, you know, what you could get away with now with high ISO and still get an acceptable image. And, you know, so here you got the first image ISO 20,000. You got this one at
Exactly.
it's ISO 16,000, and they're acceptable. They're acceptable. I mean, I think anyway. I don't know what you guys think. Now the next shot was, I call it the snowy gathering. This was on the pond side, and this is when the sun was starting to cut across this area, because you could see some highlighted areas in the grasses and the reeds and the pink flowers on the left hand side, and then a little bit of shadow areas, you know, in where the birds are standing on the rocks there, artificial rocks, and one coming in for a landing, and with the gator in the bottom right hand corner in the foreground, the gator head. This was Z9 600 PF wide open, f6.3 1/1600th of a second, and at this time, voila, ISO 1400. I'll take it.
Exactly.
And
Ready for breakfast here.
yeah, now this is an example of a skimmer shot on a perfect day, and this was on the pond side rather than the marsh side. And this down, you know, quite a difference. I mean, the other ones are acceptable, you know, aren't bad, but you know, when you get the like you say, a lot of it's about the light. You work with what you have, you do the best you can. But you know, when you get a perfect day like this, you're just smiling from ear to ear, as they say. And this was and with the good light. So here's wide open, you know, 1/2000th of a second at ISO 800. And you know, of course, you know, I'm panning as I shoot here too. I'm always panning. I always pan. I don't often, you know, I got something moving, I pan with it. I don't often just stay stationary and wait for it to get in a certain place in the frame and take the picture. I pan probably 95% of the time. And then I think two more.
Great shot, Jeff.
Two more. Thanks. I got three more. I've got a bluebird.
Wow.
This is where you take advantage of you get lower to the ground as you can, and he's got a cricket. He has a cricket in his mouth, and you get low to the ground, so you get that. You know, the foreground is a little bit blurry. Then you just have that small band, that small narrow area where you have sharpness, and then the background blurs out again. And actually, Steve Perry just had a video that he came out with where he's talking about this technique, and it's all about, you know, the angle of your lens relative to the subject, and getting lower to the subject, and being able to have this narrow depth of field area where you have foreground blurry, background blurry, subject sharp. So this is my example of, if you watch his video that just came out not too long ago, he talks about the techniques and methods of getting these kinds of photos. This was with the 800 PF. This was the Z9 with the 800 PF at f7.1, 1/1600th of a second, ISO 450. And then I had a shot of a somewhat perplexed green heron looking over the side of a railing, and this is kind of the same deal, depending on how you position yourself and your lens to the subject, because here you have that same effect of a very shallow depth of field area because the bird is sharp. I mean, from the butt end to the bill, the bird is tack sharp. The nails on the toes or on the feet are tack sharp, but the wooden board has very small amount of sharpness, right? Most of it is blurry in the foreground from right to left, and then past the foot, it's blurry after that. So once again, you're playing with that little band of where you can have things in focus, and what when you're excuse me, sorry, get back here. When you're experimenting, like David says, experimentation. That's how you just kind of eventually know what you have to do through practice and failure and redoing things over and over again. Eventually you get to where you just automatically know, right? I mean, you're not even really thinking about it so much. You just kind of know what you got to do. And that's where you really want to get with your camera, is to know your camera well enough and your lenses well enough where you don't have to think a lot, where it just kind of comes natural. And that's not anything that happens in a week. I mean, that's something that happens over years. It's not anything that happens quickly. It's something that happens over years. This was with the 800 PF on the Z9 as well, wide open, 1/8,000th of a second at ISO 2500, and I had the shutter speed high because I wasn't sure if it was going to take off, and I wanted to have a high shutter speed. So I still had ISO 2500, which on these cameras is not a big deal in terms of being able to get rid of what little noise that you're going to have at ISO 2500. So it allowed me to jack up the shutter speed just in case I needed it. And then my last shot is Gustavo. I couldn't figure out. I got tired of trying to figure out what kind of bird this was because of the viewpoint of the bird. I couldn't see enough of the wing, so I'm not really sure. Wasn't sure. There's a little bit of a bluish teal color on the edge of the wing there.
That's a immature a bluebird.
Okay, so this is on the end of a broken branch on what we call a live oak tree, and you can see to the left of the head where the branch broke off, and then the background. This was wide open. This is with the 600 PF wide open at 6.3, 1/1600th of a second, ISO 450. So this was where you want to make sure the background's blurred out as much as you can, because you basically have this live oak in the foreground, and then once you get to the back side of that live oak, then you hit a grassy area where you get an area where you have the reeds and the grasses are tall, and you have a lot of tall vertical trees, which you can see with the shapes in the background. The vertical lines going up are just a series of trees in the background. So you're trying to. I wanted to basically just make sure that the bird was sharp, and I didn't care about anything else, because if I stopped it down, those trees in the background, we're not going to add anything of any interest to the photo. It was better just to keep it all blurry, in my opinion. I wanted to just keep it all blurry. So, so that's it for the photos. That's 69 photos. I want to thank everybody for, sending in everything, and we're going to do what we always do here, and we're going to rewind back to the first image. And so this is where you get to look at it one more time to make notes of picking the three that you like the most. But of course, once this show is over, you can go back and view it again at your leisure on my Selective Imagery YouTube channel under live, the live section, and rewatch the show if you need more time to make up your mind. And so I'm going to go back to the beginning here, and we're going to spend only about like 5 seconds per shot, and we're going to go through all these images. And so we'll start here. And like I said, these are all in sequential order. If I'm going too fast, let me know. I'll slow down. Now we hit our Iceland portfolio. Terry and Gustavo shots coming that we're in here now. These are the ones from Luis. Nice to get some landscape shots in the photo review as well. We don't always have too many of those. Then we got Roy showing off with his buddies.
Yeah.
Roy and friends. Roy, you should just set up a camera and do a video and do like do a stream every morning to show you saying hi to your pals here.
Too much work.
Have a live
I got
cam
lots of
going.
videos of them being fed.
They ever bite you by accident?
Yeah, but they're very gentle. They're very subtle bites.
Yeah.
They're not vicious. You'd think they'd peck a lot harder, but they don't. You sit on one of them, you'd know it though. Got a lot of black cockatoos in this area.
Yeah.
I'm going to set up the pre-capture too.
Yeah, it's a treat what we get to look at every month, isn't it, guys?
Yes.
It is.
Oh, it's pretty rough, but somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, it's a thankless job. Somebody's got to do it. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, just to see what everybody does is amazing.
At least they're not all bird photos.
Well, some people think they are.
See, at least here we got a picture of a tripod.
Yeah. And,
look
and,
at
it
the
looks
other
like,
one.
and it looks like he's got a Lincoln in the garage too.
How many dead bodies can you put in that trunk?
I don't know. That was a running joke I had with my old neighbor. She'd get so mad at me. I'd like a big card go by. I go, wow, you could fit a lot of bodies in that trunk, and she'd get mad at me.
But where's John when you need him?
Yeah. Hey, I can't help it if I have a strange sense of humor. It's what if I didn't have a sense of humor, and I'd walk around a very depressed person. You have to laugh at life, and you have to laugh at situations, because if you don't laugh at things, you would be crying instead. That's how I look at it, and I'd rather laugh.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful shot.
Yeah, this is Ava's Gustavo.
The only thing wrong with this shot is it's not mine.
It's not yours, yeah. I guess Jeff and Leslie took off. So good night, Jeff and Leslie. If I've already missed you, I apologize. But I'm clicking and looking and can't look at two computers at the same time. And
Well, they'll hear you on the restream. This is an interesting shot here.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you can do with some of the lava glass. Like I'm happy with what I have.
Now, David, what's the name of that building in the middle called?
That's the Calgary Tower.
Okay.
I figured I gotta include that every so often because Joey usually does.
Yeah.
Being that he's not here, somebody's got to do it. Got to fill in for him.
That is that.
Do we have to, when we put down our favorite three, do we have to put them in order of which is favorite and which is not?
No, it's just gonna be whatever one has the highest amount was chosen by the most people will be number one, and the next one will be number two, and the next one will be number three. So
The
they
problem
don't have,
is that with so many images, Jeff, you may get the situation that you have a lot of a lot of ties.
well, I mean, I'm hoping that people could pick three out by next Saturday. It may be a little difficult.
Exactly. No, but
I
it's a
mean,
wonderful selection.
I'm
yeah.
down to 5, and they're fantastic. But look at all the ones I had. I mean,
15.
geez.
Yeah, I mean it's like, yeah, we're probably asking for, you know what, this may cause great trauma within the community. This might be a one-shot deal, because people might say, do you know how much time I spent looking at those pictures over and over and over and over again to pick out three, and you guys drove me crazy wanting to do this, and there'll be a mutiny, you know, and they'll say, you're not doing this anymore. It's too much. I had a headache for a week, you know. We'll have to see how it goes. But yeah, I mean, I didn't write anything down. I'm going to wait till I go through the whole thing. I probably won't be doing, there's no sense in really doing an index on this show, you know, because it's basically just a photo review. So we're not going to have 15 different topics. So I'm not going to bother doing an index for this show like I've been doing. It really wouldn't make a lot of sense. I do have a few things to share. We have a little bit of time.
And before everybody takes off, I'll give you my Aurora prediction.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead, Dave? You go ahead with that. I got to run and get another drink of water or something.
Okay, I'm just going to check the current conditions at the moment. So this stuff that I tell you is the latest. Currently, where I'm sitting, the KP index is 1.33.
Woo! Bye.
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way: it's not good.
Exactly.
The solar winds are about 380 kilometers a second, which is slow. 500 is nice. The solar density is less than 0.1. 10 to 20 is great. Just to give you an idea. The BZ right now is positive 2.4. A negative 5 or so is good. So far, we have 4 strikes against us, and it's not baseball. It might as well be baseball because it's. But at the same time, all this information is from a small satellite that is between the Earth and the Sun, and I don't know how easy or how wide of an area that it picks, because it only is taking a sample out of what's hitting the Earth. So you got to take all of this with a grain of salt. But it's what happened, and now NASA is having a number of problems because some of the satellites that they use for the predictions aren't working. Their senior predictor retired, and I don't know. The person that I listen to is the space weather woman. She knows what's going on, but she's been buying into a bunch of this stuff too, because she uses the same information that they generate to make her prediction. But they've got lousy information coming in, because if you're going to be looking at the sun with 2 cameras, the farther apart you get your 2 cameras, and so you can get a stereo view, the better. But that's not happening. And so when your 2 cameras get really close, it's very hard to estimate speeds and everything else. And I think another thing that's happening is this is a low news day, and so the news people got to report on something, and so this is it. But anyway, I'm staying home tonight. I've got not going out, and
Not going out.
yeah, and I may look at this before I go to bed, but I gave Gustavo a 40-minute dissertation on this yesterday, and if anybody else has any questions or whatever, contact me. You can send Jeff an email, and he'll forward your information to me, and we can meet together on Zoom. And yeah.
You did a you did a good. You make a gave me a very good explanation. It would be worthwhile at one point to put a presentation, David.
Yeah, and
With the name of the website. We understand that, like anything, correct, in nature, it's.
I actually think I'll have to go back and look, because I think David was kind enough to put something together a while back, and he showed some of the charts and whatever. But it was a while ago, and before we were doing any kind of indexing of what's in the show. So I don't remember what episode it was, to be honest with you. I'd have to look.
Well, and I can tell you, I remember what he showed. Obviously, you only have a chance to assimilate a little, but having a phone call with him yesterday, with him going through, in a particular web page, this is what you need to look, and this is the ranges that are good. For me, David, was very good, and having that documented, it would put a lot of people. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
You will be blamed for making some aficionados into this type of photography, like I am, like I got from Eva.
Yeah, you ruined her. Now she's only going to take hummingbird photos from now on, and that'll be it.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a number of misconceptions, because Zach was having problems, and he heard, because I was taking out my short glass, but down where you are, Gustavo, you want longer glass than what I use here.
Yeah.
And Zach, his old favorite lens is 51.2, and I think that's a good choice for where you guys are in the States.
Yes.
Get out
of that lens.
Yeah. Well, I don't have one because I don't shoot 50. Well, actually, that's not true. But 50 tonight on my ZF as my webcam. But that's the only time I use, or almost the only time I use a 50. But if anybody has any questions, they can either come in the chat now, or they can send Jeff an email, selective imagery, and he'll forward you on, and I can contact you.
Yeah.
And if you're in Canada or the US, we can do it over the phone. Otherwise, you got to do it over Zoom.
I consider myself the air traffic controller for the photographic community. I will direct your questions to random individuals, and they won't even know it's coming. They'll just all of a sudden get an email.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a lot of news, but I'll discuss a few things here. I mean, we may hit 12:15 in the morning here, or 12:30 at the most, but we'll be done shortly. We won't go past our time, our midnight time, too far. A while back, we were talking about Voigtlander was discontinuing their Apple Lanthar f2 35 millimeter and 50 millimeter focal length lenses, and they didn't give a reason why. And there were some people that were pretty upset about that. And a lot of people went out and were trying to get the few lenses that were left before the stock, evaporated and there wasn't anything left to buy. And then it's kind of irritating. I'm sure some people like today are now kind of like maybe a little bit ticked off because, um, yeah, send me whatever you got, Roy. Some people might be a little ticked off because they just announced a version 2 of these lenses that they just discontinued. So no one knew why they were being discontinued to begin with. And then, people were trying to scoff up what the remaining inventory was because, they're very good lenses and people wanted to get them. Now they came out with a version 2. Now, I guess the only thing is I guess the biggest change is, and I didn't realize this, that the original lens hoods for those lenses were not reversible. You couldn't flip them and put them back on the camera lens. They were not reversible. And I've really never heard of a lens hood that wasn't reversible before. So that was kind of weird, but now they're reversible. So that's one of the big improvements with the version 2. And then they do have a slightly different external design look to them. That's about it. And the 35 millimeter version is going to come out in December, and the 50 millimeter version is going to come out in November of this year. So that's that with that. You have till tomorrow to take advantage of the Nikon Capture the Fall savings program, which really isn't much different than the previous lens saving program that they had. Just changed the name because the season changed here. But they do have a where you could save up to $500 on trading in an older camera toward the purchase of a new Z9. So if you have something that isn't ancient, maybe you could get $500 for something that you don't use anymore if you're interested in a Z9 body.
Can I get a Z9 body for $500?
500 off.
500.
The only body you can get for $500 is the one that accidentally fell off the truck.
I'll have 3 because I can't get them repaired.
I talked about a little bit a while back about the Hong Kong lens manufacturer Artra Labs. Their no Nikkor knock 50 millimeter f1.2 they say is now available at B&H, but it's $398. That's the lens that I ordered months ago. I got it at a cheaper price and throwing in 2 lens filters as well. I hope to get that lens sometime this month. And once I do, I'll take some images with it and I'll share them with you guys and talk about the lens a little bit. So B&H is listing it right now as a special order lens with a 2 to 4 week delivery. So I guess I'm expecting it within the next 2 to 4 weeks as well. I don't usually talk about third-party lenses a lot. I mean, I will mention some of them that are coming out, that Nikon Rumors talks about, just so you're aware of what is out there. But I don't really go in depth on them too much. But I noticed this past week that I ran across 2 lenses that I found very interesting. Not saying I would buy both of them. One of them I definitely would consider buying. One, not so much, but it is very interesting because you always hear the complaint that current lenses don't have any character. And I kind of laugh at that statement because sometimes what people call character are basically lens defects or the fact that they couldn't make the lenses that good 50 years ago and they choose to call it character. It was basically a limitation of the technology that existed 50 years ago or 60 years ago. And now obviously some of them provide a look that some people miss and they really, really want it, and they don't get it on a lot of lenses now because so many of them are sharp corner to corner. If if not wide open, they stop it down one stop and the thing's sharp corner to corner, and they don't like that. They want to have it where in the old days where your corners were soft until you stopped down to maybe f5.6, and then everything was sharp corner to corner. But whatever. I find it funny that when we want to get into this discussion of character, sometimes character is basically, yeah, it's a sucky lens, but you like how the effect is, but it's not a very good lens. But anyway, there's two lenses that came out that I probably watched a half a dozen reviews on each of these lenses, and they might interest you folks. And they're getting very, very high ratings. So the first one is the one that I'm gonna call the the first one is a wide angle prime for the Z mount that's autofocus made by Viltrox. It's their full frame autofocus 16 millimeter f1.8 FE lens, and I'll talk about it first, and then I took some screen captures from their website, and I'll just show you a few pictures of the lens after I talk about it. Does not have image stabilization, but of course you can use the IBIS that's in your camera. It hardly has any distortion at all, even wide open. It does have vignetting in the corners when it's wide open, which gradually disappears as you stop it down. But vignetting, some people want vignetting in the corners anyway. And if you don't, it's very easy fixed in post-processing with your software. You can get rid of it very, very easy. So it's really not that big a deal. The lens is exceptionally sharp. It has a USB connector built into the rear of the lens for doing updates, firmware updates. It's a very affordable lens. It's $580. And since Nikon really doesn't have a prime wide angle right now that's any wider than 20 millimeter, the 20 millimeter f1.8, unless you get into old f mount glass, but for Z mount glass, you got the 20 millimeter f1.8 prime, and that's it. So if you want something that's a little bit wider, 16 millimeters is a pretty decent, focal length, my opinion anyway. $580. It uses the 77 millimeter filters, which you use on a lot of your Nikon glass, so you don't have to buy different filter sizes. And it's people are just like thoroughly impressed with it. Some of them are one guy is someone that does let's say landscapes with astrophotography, not just taking a picture just of the sky, but he takes pictures of a foreground element of a building or whatever with a lot of sky in the picture with the stars and everything, that type of photography. And he liked it very, very much, the sharpness, and it's not perfect, but he said it is very, very sharp, and he really liked it. And I was very impressed by the images I saw. And my only negative opinion, and it's based on really a lot of other people's opinion, is the Chinese lenses. The instructions that you get when you buy these Chinese lenses are extremely minimalistic. There's not a lot of information on any printed documentation that you might get with any of their lenses, and their website information is not much better than what's on that little piece of paper that comes in the box with the lens. So a lot of people, it doesn't matter whether it's Viltrox or Laowa or any of these other companies, they have a heck of a time figuring out how to go about doing a firmware update on a lens when they hear there's a firmware update on the lens, because the instructions are very, very poor on the website for these companies and in the material that you get when you buy the lens. And of course, you always run a slight risk that if it's not a third-party lens manufacturer that's in bed with Nikon and working with them, Nikon could theoretically do a firmware upgrade on their camera, and then all of a sudden your lens may not work. and then you got to wait for that third-party lens manufacturer to do a firmware update on their lens so that it'll work again on your camera body. So there are a few risks that you take with buying third-party, but I'll tell you, I was very, very impressed by this lens, and I'll bring up a few pictures of the lens to share with you quickly, and then I got one other lens to talk about. So we will. So this is here's an image here, and it does have a display on it like you have on a few of the higher end Nikon lenses. Now their display is kind of neat because it's a color display. It's also not a display that only stays on for a few seconds and it shuts off. The display stays on unless your camera goes in sleep mode. So as long as you're actively using the lens, that display will stay illuminated and provide you with some information if you choose to use it or not. It has an autofocus and manual focus switch. It has a function 1 and function 2 button on the lens. It's all metal construction. It does have a gasket on the rear of the lens for weather sealing, 77 millimeter filter size. Very, very, people are saying very, very well made, very, very well made lens. Let me bring up one of the other images. So this is a image of the rear. Here. So you got your contacts, you got your seal here, that orangey color here, barely tell, but it's there. You can see the display lit up in this view, and then you also have a switch. Can't see it in this view. There's also your aperture. You have an aperture dial on the lens with click stops, and then it has an A setting. So if you have it in the A setting or the automatic setting, then your front or rear dial on your Z-body camera is controlling the f-stop, okay, instead of the aperture ring. So if you want to have the camera, control your f-stop adjustments on your lens, you just leave that in the A mode. If you just decide that you want to be able to do it by turning the ring, you can turn the ring. And then there is a switch where you can have it so when you turn it, it doesn't have an audible clicking sound when you rotate it. So that if you're doing video and you're changing your aperture while you're doing video, you won't hear click, 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 click in the video recording as you're doing video. So we will, I think I got maybe one or two more quick shots of this lens. Here's one on a strangely strange decor on this Nikon body. So there's a lens on a body. And
Jeff, put that comment from Rakesh because he has used that lens on Astro.
What's that?
Put that comment from Rakesh. He that lens that you were talking about. He used it for Astro. Remember last? I think he mentioned August, but I remember one of the photo review that he chose some astrophotography.
Yeah. Well, one guy who uses this lens for Astro did not feel that the display, because the display is on the top, he didn't feel it had any effect on the image at all. Exactly. That was his opinion. So everybody's going to have an
anyway.
You can always put a little bit of a tape, correct? You're doing Astro.
Well, I think it's off too.
You can switch it off?
I think so. I think you can turn the LED off. I don't know if it's inside the camera or.
I don't know if you could turn it off or not, to be honest with you. I didn't read any comments one way or the other. So I'm not sure. But it's a great lens, and I mean, the corner sharpness was very, very good. I mean, yeah, you could see maybe a couple of stars. I mean, and I'm talking a couple that maybe were a little soft, but very, for the most part, I mean, it was extremely minimal. You really want to be like kind of pixel peeping, to be overly, being maybe a bit overly critical. I mean, I thought they were very, very good images overall, and most of the people that reviewed it were very, very happy with it. And for 500 and whatever I said it was, $580 or whatever, it's a steal. It's a steal. So that's one of the lenses. So that's I may actually buy this lens down the road, not right now, but I got to survive the Christmas holidays first, and maybe next year I'll think about buying it. But let me talk about the other lens quick, and then I got a few pictures that Roy sent me that I'll show you, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. Now, another lens that came out that people were liking because it's a character lens, okay, and it's not the person that owns it that makes it a character lens, it's the lens itself. It's a TT Artisans lens. Unfortunately, it's only available in the M42 mount, so you'd have to buy an M42 to Z mount adapter. I looked at B&H's website and looked at all their adapters, and the one that had the most stars was a Velo one that was like $49.95 or something, basically $50. And for some reason, the adapters made by TT Artisans themselves, they say, will not work with a few of their lenses, and the lens I'm going to talk about is one of them. So I don't know why they make a lens. You're going to need an adapter, and their adapters that they make for a Z mount will not support this particular lens. And it's a 75 millimeter f1.5 lens. It's manual focus, full frame. And what makes it special, well, this is their words, because for some people, they'll say, I have no interest in a lens like this. Others are going to be like, oh my gosh, when can I get one? If you shoot it wide open, and I think if you stop it down one click, it still has the same effect. It has a very small area of sharp focus in the center of the lens, and then everything beyond that is going to be what they call soft swirly bokeh effect. Okay. And then if you stop it down more, it changes from a soft swirly bokeh effect to a bubble bokeh effect. So if you don't like the swirly effect and you don't like the bokeh bubble effect, then this lens is not for you. But I saw pictures that they took with this lens, and it would be a very fun lens, interesting lens for some portrait photography, some still life photography, or take a close-up of a flower and you want the background to have a totally different look than you're going to get from the lenses that you have in your kit right now. I mean, it is kind of an interesting, in a weird way, it's a very interesting lens. And, as you stop it down more, the center being sharp will of course become more, larger area will become sharp as you stop it down. But it's interesting. And it's only $269. But unfortunately, if you got a Z mount camera, you're going to have to buy an adapter that might cost you $50 on top of that. But still, you're talking, $319 for the two items, and for a lens that is definitely different. And it's all metal construction. It's made very, very well, and the reviews that are out there on it are extremely favorable for those who reviewed it. And the pictures are interesting. They're interesting. I don't think it would be a lens that you're going to use all the time any more than a 16 millimeter wide angle or a 10 millimeter wide angle would be. It's going to have certain uses for certain people, but both these lenses are definitely worth a look, and the prices are very, very good. And if you have any interest in either one of them, you can find plenty of reviews that have been done on both of these lenses from a lot of different people that shoot. Some of them that shoot landscape photography, some of them that do astrophotography. You get a lot of different opinions on the lenses, and on this last one I talked about, obviously portrait photography and still life and flowers and stuff like that. So I don't often spend a lot of time doing research on third-party lenses, but these were definitely unique lenses and deserve a look. Because who knows when you're going to get a 16 or 14 millimeter prime Nikon wide angle lens, and if you do, it's going to be $1,200 or more. It's not going to be, it's not going to be $500 or $600. So if it's a lens that you want in your kit for when you need it, and it's not something that you use a lot, then you don't necessarily got to buy the most expensive lens, as long as you find one that's rated well. Save yourself a few bucks, and especially on something that's not going to be a common lens. I mean, if you make a living with it, then you might say, well, I want maybe I'll wait or something. But how long are you going to wait? I think we've been waiting too long for some wider prime lenses from Nikon. I don't know why they're coming out with too many versions of the 35 millimeter lens, to be honest, with my opinion. Come out with some other wide lenses.
It's the same with the 50. There's 4 of them.
Yeah. And
there's no 28, or there's no good 28.
Yeah. And how many lenses do we need that start with 24? 24 to 70, 24 to this, 24 to that, 24 to, it's like now for those of you that got a kick out of Scuba Razzi's images with the dragonfly head, that Laowa 25 millimeter 2.5 to 5 times magnification lens, just so you know, sells for $399, and is a really funky looking lens. It's really, really strange looking lens. It almost is shaped like, it's wide, it's wider, where it mounts to the camera, and then it narrows down, it tapers down. It's a really funky looking lens. So if you want to, but it's the only lens that you're going to find out there that will do more than 2 times magnification of your subject. I mean, you can find some 2 times macro lenses that are with the longer focal lengths. You can find out, 100 millimeter. I mean, I got that TT Artisans I bought, I think is 100 millimeter 2 times macro tilt shift lens. And then they stopped making that, and they've got a 100 millimeter 2 times macro that's not tilt shift lens. And then I think some 60s out there that are 2 times macro, well, from some third-party lens manufacturers. So, but you want to get into one that Scuba Razzi was using. You're going to want, it's going to be on a tripod. You're going to have a lighting setup. And if you had it mounted on a rail system where you could more accurately focus it, that would be a benefit as well, because the depth of field is so shallow that
and it probably was that close to the dragonfly, correct?
That's because it was belly up.
I know, but I mean that still you had to be on top of that. But dragonfly.
Yeah.
Most bug lenses are much longer.
So that's all I have for topics here to talk about. But I'll bring up Roy. Are you sharing your image? Is it or is
I
it?
am. Yes. I was testing dynamic range on the Z cameras.
Okay. So you got a.
And you see the thing in the middle of the upright building. That should be really strong, bright colours. I stop it right down, but they're still not there. So it's probably just beyond the dynamic range of the camera. This is from the Z6, which seems to be the most successful of them. But I'm still not happy. I'm going to try the old F cameras later.
Yeah, Roy, I find for fireworks, F11 at ISO 100, you get the colors.
It's not just the exposure, it's getting the colors from the buildings I'm having trouble with.
Oh, yeah. To get both at the same time, that's not easy.
See, those buildings were really base colored. So they should be much more colorful than they are, not just white. That's about 15 miles away, by the way. It's quite dark.
Now, is this like right now going on?
No, that was 2 nights ago.
Okay, so now do they do this every so often, or?
There seems to be some sort of fairground going on, so I just photographed it.
Okay.
I thought it was a good test for the dynamic range of the different cameras.
Yeah.
The Z8 and Z9 didn't do as well as the Z6, which surprised me.
But Roy, is the dynamic range on video mode the same that you will have?
Yeah, it's different to stills.
The still.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see if I can get the colors from the actual buildings.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's that.
Cool. I'm watching the show. I'm watching the show.
And it's not even 4th of July.
Yeah, I know. But
Yeah.
I got a couple of things here. One is a request to Mr. John Ishii, correct? That because I saw, probably some of you saw that too, the review of Mac Ranger of the GFX 102 using the 500 on a bird park in, I think, in Hong Kong, where he is, and he has he struggled a lot, but I would like to hear the opinion of Mr. Ishii, because I mean that talking about dynamic range, Roy, I look at some of the charts for the dynamic range. If you really want dynamic range, you should go for that GFX to that one has a distinctive dynamic range.
It does, but it doesn't as well. I've tried the GFX 50 and that wasn't that good, really.
Okay, so
It was okay, but
that's what I would like to hear the opinion of Mr. Ishii. I mean, see, he has that 500, right? In principle, and I know the autofocus is not that good. That's what Matt was complaining about. But I mean, if you get a good portrait photo, that should be a fantastic camera, correct? Because of it's a 16-bit, it has 100 megapixels. So, remember the
kind of
question
surprised that I'm surprised they came out with a lens that long for a camera like that.
it's
because
weird.
It's not really that camera is not really meant to be doing wildlife.
Well, but
Or video.
But
It's
if
a
you
stretch.
do
It's a stretch, you know.
if you do portrait, right?
Right, but you're doing portraits. You're not using a 500 millimeter lens to do a portrait.
No, what I mean.
Well, during COVID.
Yeah, you're using historically you're using a camera like that for landscapes, seascapes, studio portraits or outdoor portraits. But you're not using it for bird photography. You're not going to take pictures of race cars going around the track.
It's a great landscape camera.
You know, I don't really understand the logic of them throwing out a 500 millimeter lens on that. But you know, I've been asking John. I've asked him a few times that you know, I know his wife it's really a camera that she's using a lot. So I asked him. I says, you know, if you guys could share some information on it, we'd all be curious to know how it's performing for them and how they're using the camera. because obviously, his wife, does a lot of what I would consider fine art photography, more than anything else. And I would just like to hear more about it. I hope I think he said that he's working on putting something together on it. I mean, I'm
For
sure
his channel.
it'll be on his channel. Yeah. At some point. Yes.
An interesting camera, but I wouldn't recommend it for most people.
Yeah, but it would be. I mean, now that Matt came with that review, maybe that motivate John to have a go at it
Yeah.
and show some images here. So that's number one. Number two is again a reminder. Like potentially we could have a aurora here on the next couple of days. Next weekend in particular, at this time of the show, correct? That comment, which I think is called Shushishan Atlas, is coming out of the other side of it's going to be in closer proximity to the Earth, and apparently survive going the perihelion around the sun. So that would be a opportunity in the northern hemisphere to take a photo just after sunset, right? So for the people here, including obviously David, Rakesh, others, see whether we can get a photo. But for some of us, it's going to be exactly the time when the next show is coming up. But so let's watch out. Maybe we get a comment.
You guys could skip my show and try to get the
No, no,
comment.
no, no.
It's okay.
Well, for me,
Hey, you know what? I might start the show and say I'll see you in a couple hours. I got to go out and try to get the comment, and then I'll come back.
exactly. Well,
I
remember
mean-
that for you, the sunset it's hours before the show. It's but it's it's a great potentially a great opportunity. Comets are particularly difficult to photograph, and they are what kind of spectacle or not we get from a comet. It's it's difficult, but if you have an opportunity even to see a visible comet, do it because it's a spectacular sight. I have seen twice. One when I was about 10 years old, and another one the infamous
Hellies.
Hail Bob. Not no, I wasn't born that long ago.
I was.
The Hail Bob, the Hail Bob, and that was spectacular.
I'm just looking back through the chat to see if I mean, obviously, I couldn't look at anything in the chat while I was showing the images, so I'm just kind of like on my own here, backtracking in the chat. I don't know if you guys see anything
No,
that we need to
most of it-
answer. Is there
Not
anything that did
related
not get answered that we need to answer?
Nope.
I don't want to leave anybody hanging. You know what I'm saying?
No, we were okay. Everybody was focusing on the show.
Okay. But anyway, I think we're going to call it a wrap, as they say. And I think once again, thanks so much to everybody. Get your votes in between now and next Saturday at 11:59 p.m. And then I will tabulate the results, and then we will put out a calendar for the month of November. And that won't take me long to do. So probably prior to, if I get everything, I look at everything, let's say next Sunday, I will probably on the following show share you what the calendar is going to look like and have the files available. And you could send me an email and I'll send you the files and we'll be all set. And then I'll show you the three images that made it. That'll be in the thumbnail for the following photo review in November, and we'll see how this goes. And if I don't get a lot of people voting, and there's not a lot of engagement, then we'll have to reassess whether we want to continue to do it or not. But we'll, I'm going to hope that everybody gets involved and wants to, wrap their brain and try to pick three images, which is going to be very, very difficult, I think, for all of us. I mean, I mean, And believe it or not, just because I mean I know off the top of my head I'm not. There will be an image in my 3 that it has nothing to do with birding. Okay, they're not going to all be bird photos. For those of you that think that, oh, Jeff's just going to pick a bird photo. No, I'm not. I mean, I saw some photos in there that have nothing to do with birds that I would definitely want in the 3 that I pick. So,
There are no birds in my photos.
no, and so let's just have a little fun with it. We'll see how it works out, and then if we get any other ideas down the road, this is a very fluid operation. We can turn on a dime and go a different direction and change things up. And next week, what we'll do is, depending on the amount of news that comes out in the next week, if there's not a lot, then I hope that people come into the chat and remember to put the QQQ in front of any questions that you have, so we pick up on it. And let's have more of a back and forth with a conversation and question and answer type of stuff. And I think it's exciting. I mean, I saw some channel that was talking about future Nikon cameras, and it was just one of those channels that, okay, they threw out like 5 cameras that Nikon's going to come out with, and the thing is, if you own either a Z9 or a Z8, and you think about it objectively, and okay, they come out, let's say, with a Z50 version 2, or they come out with a Z5 version 2, or they come out with a higher a D500 replacement, more of a pro body APS-C camera. If you own a Z8 or a Z9, those other cameras are just going to gain some of the technology, that are in the Z8 or the Z9, getting flowed down to some of the lower end products, which is a great thing. But for those of us that have a Z8 or a Z9, the probability of us wanting to buy those products is probably not going to be very high, because we already have a Z8 or a Z9. So until they come out with something like and then of course this particular channel that I was watching, which I did not write down what it was, they were talking about a Z9 II, and they were talking about it being basically like a Sony A9 III with a global shutter and a 24 megapixel sensor, or a little less than a 24 megapixel sensor. And so depending on what they do with that camera body, if for what I shoot, I have no interest in I am not going to buy a Z9 II just because it has a global shutter, because I don't need that feature for what I shoot. That's me personally. I don't need it for what I shoot.
The shutter in the Z9 is fast enough now. You don't need a global shutter.
No, I mean, you need it for, if you need it for, syncing your flash speed, if you want to shoot, high shutter speeds with flash. Other than that, I mean, you're not going to have warping airplane prop blades with your photos with a Z8 or a Z9. They're fast enough where you're not going to have that distortion. So, but it all depends on what you're looking for. I mean, if you want that kind of technology, then obviously you're going to buy a Sony Sony A9 III, or maybe an R1 Canon, which doesn't have a global shutter, but it does have higher sync speeds and stuff like that. But yeah, so I kind of sit back and I'm saying, yeah, for the next, theoretically, if I were to take that article seriously, which it's a possibility, I say to myself, for me personally, I'm just fine sitting right where I am. I'm just fine sitting right where I am for a considerable amount of time, and if anything, fill in gaps in my lens lineup and get better just get better as a photographer and worry about that rather than worrying about gear, which is kind of refreshing if you get to that point where you could just worry about technique and worry about, and as Gustavo says, instead of buying the gear, go out and take a trip and get some great pictures using your gear somewhere else other than your backyard. Right?
Yeah, you're better off to have excellent glass than you are to have your better body.
Yeah.
And I can see the new Nikons that are coming out for the replacement for the 8 and the 9. They're going to have an awful lot of red technology in them because the reds all have global shutters now.
Yeah. So,
Some red.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm not intrigued. I'm not saying that, they definitely need to update the Z50 body. They need to because they're not competitive with the competition right now with some of their lower end camera bodies. So they need to beef them up. They need to improve the video specs. They need to improve the bring the autofocus, subject detection, and stuff from the higher end cameras down to the lower end cameras and all that. But like I said, for me where I'm at, I'm glad that they'll do that because that'll bring more people into the Nikon universe, right? Which is always a good thing. Get more people involved into the Nikon product line or want to buy a Nikon product. But from where I am right now, I mean, I'm very happy where I am right now. I got no complaints.
And one other thing on Gustavo was talking about the Comet. I put a note in the chat with its official name, and there's an app called Sky Tonight and another one called Star Walk 2. If you type in the official name, it'll tell you where to look to see the comet right now.
I only worry about it if it's going to land on my roof that I just replaced.
Well, I think if it landed within a half a mile of the roof that you just replaced,
Yeah.
I would worry.
I do everything.
I agree. Hey, anyway, we're half hour past our bedtime. I turn into a frog at 12:30 a.m. So, thanks so much, everybody, for coming on. We'll see you next week. Come with lots of things to talk about and lots of questions for us, and have an engaging show next week. And we'll talk a little bit about the following week. We'll be sharing, our results of our voting and our calendar for November. And so we got that to look forward to as well. So thanks so much, and everybody have a good night and be safe. And if you got affected by this hurricane, words do not help you, obviously, but we're in your corner. It's all I can say is it's a horrible situation, and I just hope your family as well and nobody got hurt, and it's just property damage and not human damage, if you know what I mean. So we extend our thoughts go out to you guys and hope that you get the help you need to move forward and get back to normal as soon as possible. And so I'm going to say good night and let everybody on the panel say good night, and we'll see you next week.
Good night.
Well, I hope everybody gets out and shoots something with their camera. Not necessarily with something else, but anyway. The Americans got this attitude of bang, bang, but just use your camera.